Did you ever think you would make it? I feel I'm so close I could taste sweet victory. I know this life meant for me. Yeah, why would you bet on Goliath when we got Bet David? Valuetainment, giving value's contagious. This world of entrepreneurs, we get no value to haters. How they run, homie, look what I become. I'm the one.
I'm loud, so I don't,
Okay, well, listen, we're back at it, podcast. We haven't done one for a minute this week because we were in Romania.
Bucharest.
Yeah, we were in Romania hanging out, and it's interesting because, Vinny, you were a celebrity there. You dressed up as a Dracula, people taking pictures with you. It's pretty wild.
It was like some guy really thought, what are the odds that these tourists just got back from Transylvania and they were like, hey, my wife, my turn.
It was classic.
You were the second biggest celebrity in Romania.
Behind Tate.
Behind another individual. So you might have been the first. I don't know.
And obviously we got a lot of story to go through. And at the beginning, we're going to give you the Tate update. And just for everybody, because I've been bombarded, swamped with messages about what's going to be happening here. So we spent, we have around 12 hours of footage of content. There will be a behind the scenes, because that behind the scenes clip alone will be very interesting for you to see. They were very transparent, which was kind of like, hey, take the camera around. We got footage from a lot of different places. We spent 7 hours talking to Andrew, and we spent about an hour and a half talking to Tristan individually. The topics and issues that was discussed was very deep, from BBC to Romania to the arrest to what it was like to be in jail, the experience in jail, the dungeon, what things they learned while they were in there, moments of not having access to your phone for 92 days, how that messes with you, personal life, kids, finance. What did they do? Did they take everything? Is there money there? Do they have any money left? Did they take this? Did they take that? Anyways, we talked about everything. Now, while we did the interview, this is one thing everybody needs to know. By the way, if you're watching this, if you want to be one of the first to get the update on this, text the word Tate to 310-340-1132. Once again, text the word Tate. Rob, if you can put this in the chat as well. Text the word Tate to 310-340-1132, or I'll give you another thing to do as well. Kai, if you can send a link to Rob to put in the description for people that are not in America internationally to be the first to get the email as well. Rob, please text Kai to text you the proper link, and let's put that below, folks. You'll see it as you're coming in, and Rob will put in the chat as well. So a lot of conversations. Legal was there. Their publicists were there. Everybody flew in from all over the place for this meeting. And the interview that goes live, I believe it's 5 hours and 20 minutes of content, of which 45 minutes will have to be cut because it's legal issues about Romania and their indictment. And that'll be live post their indictment, which could be any time now in the next week or two. So there will be, what we're working on right now is for it to come out and be released. The interview, number one, I think it's going to be 4 hours and 40 minutes, something like that, 4 hours and 30 minutes. And then the other 44 minutes will be released post-indictment. So there's going to be two parts to it. And then Tristan's interview will also be released here very soon as well. It's epic. If you enjoyed the first one, this was probably, I don't want to say 10 times wilder, because even the intro, I don't know if you guys saw the intro yesterday.
I did.
I saw it.
Shout out to the team for what they're doing over
Alan,
there.
everybody.
Eric, Alan, Kelly, the whole crew, Brandon with the research. These guys really were busting their tails, editing. I think they went without any sleep trying to get it this done.
They did.
And their crew, Tate's crew, was very hospitable, where they were with us.
Can I give us a shout out?
Yeah.
Tate said, you guys are the most prepared for any interview he's ever done. The research, the notes,
I don't know if we were more prepared than Lucy Williamson from BBC. I don't want to give us that kind of credit. I think we're second best to Lucy.
Yeah.
She's the GOAT.
Yeah.
We have to realize.
She was prepared with an agenda that completely fell.
She was ready to get killed. She just didn't know it.
And Pat, just to say something off of what you said, for people like, I never met him. I've seen the videos. Obviously, I've never met him. But from start to finish, be honest, the hospitality, the sincere, genuine, like, do you want a coffee? Dude, it was like being in a Middle Eastern person's house. Great personality. Like, bend over backwards to making us feel. Did you feel like you were at home?
It was a
I
great
felt I was home.
experience. I mean, it was the same way last time, though. But it was a great experience this time being in the house when you pull up to the security waiting outside, the place it was, the driver knowing who they were and asking around in the city what they thought of the Tates. You just have to watch the interview to see all of this combined. And it starts off, we give 3 gifts at the beginning, which you will crack up. And we give 2 or 3 unique gifts at the end, which you won't crack up.
You will tear up almost.
You will tear up, the gifts at the end, because it's going to be sentimental and meaningful to them. But I think it's a conversation that people need to hear. You're gonna. I can tell you one thing, folks. When you see this, BBC is going to hate this interview. Let me say that one more time. They're going to hate this interview. And that may be an understatement on what happened. So, but at the same time, I think it needed to be this way. People need to hear the story from them to kind of see where they're at, and then we're going to see what the court's going to do. Whether they're going to get charged, they're not. Still till today, it's still allegedly. A lot of people are trying to come after them. A recent story came out with another girl named Evie that claimed they did something 10 years ago. We talked about that as well. Anyways, if you're following the Tate story, you're not only not going to want to miss this one. I remember the first one was 5 hours. People are like, who the hell is going to watch a 5-hour thing? And it was common consensus I got wherever I went, and whatever DMs and emails and messages that came in, I sat there expecting to just watch the first 30 minutes. I ended up finishing the whole thing on one sit down. And you're going to see a lot of people are going to be doing that, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be epic.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
I wrote down 3 things that I took from this in general. The big overdrop that I would say is I would argue that Tate, whether you love him, you hate him, appreciate him, disrespect, whatever, I would argue that he is inarguably the greatest communicator living today.
I agree.
The ability to understand what he's talking about, but also relate to everyday people is fascinating. And we actually had that conversation about, I said, you see, you have all these belts on your wall about being a 4-time kickbox champion. I said, I would argue that your linguistic skills and your wordsmith ability is better than your kickboxing ability. He goes, I wouldn't deny that. So but here are the 3 biggest takeaways. And you touched on number 1. I would say the hospitality was actually genuinely impressive from Tristan, Andrew, his team, the ladies, everyone there. Very impressive with that. Absolute gentleman, even when the cameras were off. So this is, you can't fake this. This is not a facade. Number 2, which I totally appreciate, and I've looked into this, was the adaptability. He referenced Darwin. He said it's not the biggest or the strongest or most intelligent that survives. It's the people who are the most adaptable, or the animals that are most adaptable. He talked about being in a yacht one week, being on a private jet, and then being in a jail cell. And he's like, I'm totally comfortable with this. Adaptability is absolutely amazing. And then, ironically, the reverse to the adaptability are your values and principles, that he is locked in on certain things that he believes, and they are unwavering, which is very impressive to me. And that he takes full accountability for everything that happened. And speaking of values and principles, the work ethic, the stoicism, the brotherhood, the finances, the mental wellness, the not believing in depression, just being an absolute top G. We had a great time. I'm excited for people to see it. And thank you, PBD, for everything.
It was great.
It
was a great experience. So stay tuned, guys, when it comes out again. Text the word Tate to 310-340-1132, or put the link below as well. Rob, did you put it below for folks to get the email as well?
Yeah, Kai's working on it right now.
PBD, one question for you. What are the chances that you change your diet to eating once a day?
No.
Only drinking coffee, 10 to 12
coffee.
coffees, and cigars. That's it. That's all.
12 to 15 cups of coffee and 3 cigars a day, and only eat once a day.
Yeah, once.
You know what would happen if I had 1 cup of coffee? I mean, it's just, let alone. Honestly, if I had 12 to 15 cups of coffee,
my heart would stop.
You wouldn't work here. It'd be a very different
The
environment.
only person that does more coffee and cigars a day is the new proud papa, Mario Aguilar.
Mario.
Shout out to him.
Shout out
Shout
to
out
Mario.
to Mario. Had a baby
New
boy.
baby here. Gabriel
Baby G.
Maximo
Aguilar.
What a
Freaking
name.
Powerful.
What a
Happy
name.
for that guy, man.
Yeah, that's a powerful name right there. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Again, text the word Tate to 310-340-1132. As we're going through this, we got a lot of stories to cover here with you. Number 1, the indictment with Trump, the new one that came out. There's indicted on 7 charges. We'll cover that. YouTube, I don't know if you guys heard or not, recently they no longer give strikes for videos and people that fight the election in 2020. So they're no longer taking those videos down, which was kind of weird, but you should hear what the Biden campaign had to say about YouTube's new guidelines. California Governor Newsom proposes 28th Amendment to the Constitution to combat gun violence. Cuba to host secret Chinese spy base focusing on U.S. And that's not like a conspiracy website saying that. That article is written by Wall Street Journal, folks. Cuba to host secret Chinese spy base focusing on U.S. RFK did a Twitter space with Musk, 300,000 people there. I believe he's making some of the best points, best arguments. We'll cover that as well. Chris Licht, CNN CEO, fired. We did the podcast saying these guys are probably going to fire this guy, and he's actually doing good for the shareholders. We'll cover that. The real reasons why Chris Licht got fired. There's an article behind that. Tucker Carlson did his first and his second, and he took an indirect shot at Obama's personal life in 2008. And a lot of people on Twitter are claiming that Tucker kind of called him part of the LGBT, you know what I'm saying? So maybe we'll cover that a little bit. And Fox News tell Tucker Carlson he violated his contract with new Twitter show. Sam Altman fires back at Elon Musk criticism on OpenAI, saying, I like the dude, but that he's totally wrong about this stuff. Again, we'll see what Tom has to say about that. Half the world's biggest companies are downsizing office space amid hybrid working. That's an insider story. Commercial real estate crash still looming over the U.S. economy. Behind rising unemployment, job market is really strong, but at the same time, jobless claims jump more than expected to the highest level since 2021. Bud Light experienced another week of sales decline, drop another 24% from a year ago. Then there's a couple stories. Companies that embrace social issues are starting to have second thoughts. That's a WSJ story. And this next one is concerning for a couple people here on the panel. Vasectomies rose.
What?
29% in the 3 months after the end of Roe, the economy. Economists wrote that.
You got yours, Vinny?
And then Mel Gibson will talk about that. And new Surgeon General talked about the loneliness epidemic. And this is the same person that was supportive of the shutdown. But let me first go to our sponsor. Our sponsor today is Masterworks Gang. There's a lot of things that's going on. You know, when you think about investments, alternative investments are on the rise. And one of the reasons why I like Masterworks and what they do is I'm an art guy. I collect collectibles. I have a lot of collectibles. Probably $10 million worth of collectibles myself. It's not as big as some others, but it's, you know, I have a good amount and I keep investing back into it because the returns on it are good, and many times they beat the S&P 500, the returns, and it's a way to, anything that's a non-duplicatable asset, I'm interested in it, and this is what Masterworks does. Now, a lot of people say, I can't afford a Banksy. I can't afford a Picasso. I can't afford an Andy Warhol. I don't have $1 million. I don't have $5 million, but you can afford to buy a share of it. Just like you can't afford to buy Apple as a whole company, but you can buy a share of Apple. You can buy a share of Microsoft. You can now buy a share of Banksy, Andy Warhol, you know, all these Picasso arts that they own. So if you haven't get registered with these guys, I believe they have over 700,000 members now. And there's a link below in the link for you to go out there and sign up to be part of this. Once again, last time inflation was this high, contemporary art appreciated on an average, ready, of 20% per year. If you've not registered with Masterworks, click on the link below to get registered with those guys. Okay, first story. Which one do we want to get into? I say we get into
the indictment.
Indictment story. Okay, first things first, the indictment. All right, so here we go. Here are the charges and how many years Trump faces in federal Mar-a-Lago indictment, New York Post story. Number one, retaining classified document. Trump is charged with hoarding classified material on Mar-a-Lago with a maximum sentence of 10 years or a fine. Number two, conspiring to obstruct justice. Trump is accused of instructing others to mislead government officials during the retrieval of the classified documents, constituting an obstruction of justice charge. This carries a maximum sentence of 10 years or a fine. Number three, withholding a document. Investigators allege that Trump purposefully retained some of the top secret government documents, which is authorized, and it carries a maximum, and carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. Number four, corruptly concealing a document or record. Trump is charged with both threatening others to mislead a federal investigation and illegally retaining classified documents, which carries a punishment up to 20 years. Concealing a document in a federal investigation, Trump faces an additional 20-year sentence if convicted. Number six, scheme to conceal. Trump is accused to knowingly hiding the classified documents while serving in a government branch, carrying a maximum of 5 years. If deemed domestic terrorism, the charge could be as high as 8 years. And last but not least, seven, false statements and representation. Trump could face charges for lying about keeping top secret document papers in his private home with a maximum sentence of 5 years. Quite frankly, all these numbers are high. All they care about is to be able to put this guy in prison for about 17 months, 19 months. That's all they care about. If they can put him in prison till December of 2024, they're happy. That's what they care about. Tom, when you hear these stories, what do you think about?
Well, I think about Eric Adams. Remember Eric Adams, the indictment that came in New York, and it was like he listed like 14 things. Was it 14 counts or something crazy in New York? And it really boiled down to one thing. This is one thing. Let's take a look at this. And this is what the government does, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they do. They cut the onion into thin slices and they keep making you cry over it. Think of this. What if a teacher said to you, because you yell at the teacher, that says you're staying after school for charge 1, interrupting the teacher, charge 2, raising your voice, charge 3, yelling at a teacher. Your parents would say, what the hell are you doing? You're just keeping him after school for one thing. You yelled in class and you got upset with you. How are you keeping him 3 days after school and you're making up these charges? That's what they're doing here. Watch this. Retaining classified documents, withholding a document, corrupt concealing a document, concealing a document, a federal investigation, scheme to conceal. That's all the same thing, hiding a document. And then the other one is he lied and obstructed justice. They say conspiring to obstruct justice, false statements, representations to obstruct. They're really saying two things. You had documents and you were not honest with us about it. And they're trying to cut this thing, PBD, into multiple charges. That way they can keep putting the years on it and it gives them something to settle on. The federal prosecutor, here's what they really want. They want a settlement in which he agrees not to be running and he agrees to go away. That's what the design is here. They're trying to wound his image in public. I'm not sure they really want the DeSantis to come out better on this. Very politically charged, but this is how the government does it. They cut things into little slices to make it seem bigger.
I think, Pat, because we were getting on the flight, right? I think it's the timing of this, right? Because Biden unleashed this indictment on the same day that the House Republicans were finally able to publicize the evidence that 5 million from Ukraine, the Burisma story, went to like, so when I tell people to wake up, there is no coincidence. It happens on purpose. They've weaponized the Department of Justice. And it's like, think about it. We get on the plane, one story comes out. We land, that one hits, because now what's the main story, Pat? It's Trump. It has nothing. Nobody cares about the Biden situation, and Biden is on camera. Do you remember that, Rob? When he was like, "I'm not." They wanted $1 billion, and he goes, "I told them, guess what? You ain't getting it."
This right here.
Unless, and you know why, Pat? Unless they fire the guy that was going after Hunter. This is the video right here.
Can you press?
This is evidence.
We've all seen this.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees, and I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't.
Wow.
So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch.
They're laughing.
Got fired.
They're laughing.
And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
You know the prosecutor was, Pat? The guy that was investigating Hunter and Burisma. Like, when are people going to wake up and be like, bro, that the proof is right in front of your face and nothing happened?
Do you have that article that just came out, by the way? This is the one from Joe Biden allegedly paid $5 million by Burisma executive as part of a bribery scheme, according to FBI document. This is not like, keep going, Lord. Let me, President Joe Biden, $5 million. Let me read that whole thing by executive. Go a little high. Yeah, but executive of the Ukraine natural gas firm Burisma, where his son Biden, Hunter, sat on the board. A confidential human source told FBI during a June 2020 interview. Sources familiar with told Fox News Digital. The sources briefed Fox Digital. The FBI generated FD 1023 form alleging a criminal bribery scheme between then Vice President Joe Biden and a foreign national that involved influence over U.S. policy decisions. The form dated June 30th, 2020 is the FBI's interview with a highly credible confidential source who detailed multiple meetings and conversations he or she had with a top Burisma executive over the course of several years starting 2015. Is there anything else below that for us to see? I mean, that in itself is plenty, ain't it?
Of course it is. It's not rumors of Russian collusion and all the BS. You're seeing a video of a guy saying pay per play. You know what I mean? And you have to fire somebody that's investigating my son, Pat. And the proof is right there, and nothing happens. That's why it's so frustrating for the average person, because it's like, dude, the left runs the show.
And by the way, the FBI, Pat, sent somebody up that recorded it, right? So a assignment officer and a superior agreed to take FD 1023. The FBI will agree not to even talk to people at times when they're trying to cover up, but they actually, so an assignment officer and a superior actually agreed, yeah, let's go file it. That's permanently filed.
That's permanently filed.
Yeah, that's in the record now.
And
FD
I want
1023
to show this. This just happened this week. Check this out. This is kind of weird when you see this here. Play this clip if you have it, Rob. Disturbing, and the reaction and the answer at the end. I think I showed this to you guys yesterday.
This is amazing.
Watch this. Go ahead.
The opportunities to respond to a former White House stenographer who this month outed you as an anonymous senior administration official who briefed reporters on Air Force Two en route to Ukraine in 2014. He says that you spoke about giving aid to the Ukrainian national gas industry just days after the second son had secretly joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company. He says he considers you part of a corrupt influence peddling conspiracy. He wants to testify to a Delaware grand jury about it. Do you have a response to that? And were you part of a corrupt influence peddling operation involving Biden's family in Ukraine or any other country?
No.
No.
By the way, look at his blink rate. Look at the blink rate.
No.
Any FBI profilers will tell you when the blink rate starts going up is where you have mental stress.
And seeing that, the point that we said yesterday, Pat, that journalism is dead. He says no. Nobody goes into a frenzy and goes, well, wait a minute. Wait, what do you? Nobody says nothing, and they move on to the next story.
I'll tell you what, the music they played in that video
was very.
You would just know he's guilty just by the music.
All those X-Files. Yeah.
Well, here's my thoughts on the Trump situation. Was that me? Is that you?
No, that was
Tom. You know, a lot of people use the word witch hunt, right? And I have the definition of that. I'm not saying that is a full-on witch hunt, but it definitely smells witch hunty.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's a verb. Witchy. It definitely smells witch hunty. The definition of a witch hunt is a campaign directed against a person or a group holding unorthodox or unpopular views. We could have a debate of whether his views are unpopular. They're certainly unorthodox. But that's what's going on there. And, you know, it came from when witches who were not doing anything witchcrafty were burned at the mother-sucking stake.
Yep.
For allegedly doing things. So it definitely feels like that. We had the conversation with the two FBI agent whistleblowers the other day, and the term weaponized and politicized was being thrown around like a football left and right.
Well, for Biden, I don't think it's the witch hunt. I think it's really the question of which bribe.
Yeah,
There you
exactly.
go, so
Exactly.
I mean, we learned with Trump in Trump's defense that the Russiagate turned out to be nada. The Ukraine stuff didn't really turn out to be anything.
Hillary.
The impeachment stuff didn't really turn out to be anything. The Stormy Daniels hush money, we'll see what happens with that. Seems very petty. But I think this is just going to be a slow drip. You mentioned Eric Adams. I think you meant Alvin Bragg, the state of New York that is coming after him. Obviously this. And then we're going to see what happens with the Georgia situation. That's him on tape asking to find 11,000 something votes. I think this comes into three camps, kind of like what we talked about with Tate. There's the people who are automatically assuming that Tate is guilty without any evidence, and they've basically anchored to that position. There's nothing you could tell them to prove them otherwise. There's the other camp that's like, he's the man, he's the top G, you can't show me anything that he's done, and I have his back. Totally understand that. And then there's the independent free thinkers that are basically like, let's see what happens here. And I think that's exactly what's playing out with the Trump situation. Number one, you have the MAGA base that is fucking pissed. Okay, there's nobody on the right side of things that is happy about this. They completely are on the camp that this is a freaking witch hunt. I don't know if you saw what Mark Levin had to say.
What?
Dude went off. Steam coming from his ears. People are freaking pissed about this. We talk about the country being divided and divisive. This ain't helping whatsoever. You want to pull up Mark Levin?
Keep what you just had there. No, go
Pretty
back
insane.
to what you had on.
So then you have the Democratic left or the woke left. If you go there, they are ecstatic. They are happy to see this. This is what they wanted, and they want more of this. It's like Trump porn, and the fetish is not going down whatsoever. Then you have the people, and I would say I'm in that camp that's like, all right, this seems a little witch hunty. Let's let the facts play out. Let's see what happens here. This is, you put up a poll up there, how much you trust the Justice Department, I'm assuming that there's going to be a lot of people that do not trust what is going on here. And the record is not good for what's going on in Trump world as far as going after the guy and really finding nothing. But you touched on it, Pat. They're going to stop at nothing. And then 18 months from now, if he's not winning the election or even running the election, they're going to be very happy to see this. Last point. This is the cover of Time magazine this week, right? I don't know if you can see this. It is a picture of Ron DeSantis.
The sanctimonious. And it's what Ron DeSantis means for America. And it is him peeling an orange. You could touch on a double
entendre.
That's very layered.
He's in Florida, the orange, the Sunshine State. But also, there's a big bad orange man that he's looking to unpeel and take down. So I think that's sort of the media's narrative, is that they would love to see Trump out of this thing and DeSantis in there. Let's not forget one thing. At the end of the day, this is the first time in this nation's history that a former president has been formally charged by the federal government. The Stormy Daniels hush money situation was New York State, Alvin Bragg, everything with that. He campaigned on that. At the end of the day, I think it's a sad situation. I think at the end of the day, the number one word that keeps popping up, whether you're on the left or on the right, is accountability. What's the accountability here? Trump being held accountable? Is Biden being held accountable? Is accountability is being distributed evenly? I know a lot of people on the right do not think that
Adam,
it is.
don't you feel that it's just one side accountability? Like one side gets away with literally murder. One side is just, it's not just one side, it's Trump.
It
does
seem
all
that
Trump,
way.
dude. It's literally all Trump. And my question was, bro, when are Americans actually going to do something? All we do is talk, Pat. All the right does is bark. When are the people actually going to get involved? And I'm not talking about January 6th BS where they show up and FBI agents are like, hey, let's run into the Capitol. I'm talking about like in Europe, Pat, when Brazil and all those protests, there was millions and millions of people in the street saying enough is enough. What do you think it's going to take for us? Like, what, Pat, every day it's another story of Biden can do whatever he wants. They can do whatever he wants. Hillary can do Russia collusion and all that. When is going to be the breaking point? Or are we too soft? And going back to what Tate always talks about, the masculine men, they're getting rid of all these guys. Those guys are just soft now. Nobody's going in the streets. It's just, I'm going to post a vlog. I'm going to go on and I'm going to post something on Instagram. When is enough, Adam? What do you think is going to be that breaking point?
I'll let Pat answer this, but I think he already hit on it. Once Trump is no longer in the race, boom, they're done with the guy. But while he's in this race, they do not want to see this guy be the president, period, end of story.
They will go after DeSantis, but at a tenth of what they're doing with Trump. Not even close.
Right.
Again, for me, one of the things we were talking about is in Glendale Unified School District. By the way, Glendale, if you're listening to this, we talked about you on Tate's interview, and we have a lot of respect for those parents, man. I mean, I saw one of these clips, which I'll send to you, Rob, here in a minute, and we'll talk about that. The biggest thing is you not being afraid of taking a stand. You not being afraid of taking a stand against what's taking place. There's a part of it where if Glendale Unified School District is sick of it, if they're sick of what's taking place, if they're sick of all the mess that's taking place, you have to go on a strike. It got so bad that the board member shows up and says, hey, what do we need to do to get you guys to stop protesting? You know what the mother said? Now what do you want to do? What about when we first asked you and we talked about this, you didn't listen to us. Now you want us to stop? Now because it's embarrassing what you guys are doing? No. Now we're going to keep talking about this until you stop. And one guy comes in saying, we have, death upon Christian fascists. I don't know if you saw this clip or not, Rob. I showed it to you guys. Yeah. This one guy gets up there and says, death upon Christian fascists. And he's a guy that's holding, if I can find this clip, I think I retweeted it or something. This guy's got very, very good clips about this. Anyways, I'll find it here in a minute. We'll go through it. But people have to, when you do something like this, you're eventually going to wake people up, and they're eventually going to say, I am not going to tolerate this. This is Glendale right now. If you look at this, look at the fights. If you can click on it so they can hear the noise, look what the guy says. Turn on the audio. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wow.
Dude, look at that.
It's not giving you audio?
Because, Pat, that's Antifa too, Pat.
Yeah.
Antifa was there getting their asses whooped.
PBD, this is where you grew up. Yes?
Listen, if there's one thing about Armenians, if you do anything to their mothers and their kids, it's game over.
Yep.
This is a very different kind of a culture. This is the types of people you want to have drinks with, you want to have conversation with, you want to spend time with, but God forbid you do anything to their kids. And they're starting to see it right now. It's common sense, by the way. Don't mess with my kids. One of the mothers asked the question, I have to find these clips to show it to you. One of the mothers asked the question and says, why do we have to teach a 4-year-old about what a transgender is? Why do we have to teach a 4-year-old? A 4-year-old. What does a 4-year-old have to learn about being a transgender? Nothing.
Zero.
A 4-year-old has nothing to do to learn about what a transgender is. But they're doing these kinds of things. One Armenian guy was standing across standing across this guy, and this other guy was saying, death upon Christian fascists. And the guy turns around and says, really? He says, you want to burn the American flag? He says, yes. He says, you want to burn the American flag. Do you have that clip? Did I send it to you or not?
I wish I could show
that.
That was incredible.
He says, you want to burn the American flag? He says, why is it such a big deal if we burn the LGBT, the pride flag, but not a big deal if you burn the American flag? Why is that okay? And anyways, there was a back and forth with them. Yeah. But my point to you is, you got to stand up for your values and principles, especially at a point like this when insanity is taking place.
Mm-hmm. The biggest thing about that is, and this is something that I've learned repeatedly being here at Valuetainment, why is it that people who are not born here, not from America, that came here, that earned the right to be here, are freaking obsessed with America? Why? Because they know what it's like the rest of the world. They know what it's like not to have a voice, not to have your freedoms, to be locked up in jail for bullshit, to not to have food on the plate, not to have an opportunity, to not have money. And they come here and they deeply, with gratitude and appreciation, love what America's about. Then you have these yahoos that are born in America and they just play the fucking victim role, and all they do is want to hate on America. This is why when Sebastian Gorka was here, we just made a call, he said this comes down to two things, two camps: the people that love America and the people that hate America, want to destroy America. And it's sad to say, but that's becoming more and more true every single freaking day.
I found the clip. Can you play this clip? Watch this guy here, what he said.
This is it.
Okay, make it bigger, and let's get the audio, Rob, if we can. Tell me the audio works on this one. Okay, go for it.
I like his French
Death to America.
Okay, pause right there.
Death
I
to America.
agree to death to America, but I also agree death to Christian fascists.
Yeah.
This is a white guy saying death to Christian fascists. Okay, keep playing it.
You agree? I agree about death to America. Like, I'll burn the flag.
You will burn this flag? You try.
You try.
Try to burn this flag.
See the pride?
That's a hate
I've
crime.
got to pace myself.
Listen, my brother, you are saying they burn the flag?
No, I'm not wrapped up.
Listen, when
They're my comrades.
why is it not okay to burn the LGBTQ flag, but it's okay for you to burn this flag? If you don't like this flag, get out of this country.
That's amazing. Let's go, baby.
You can carry it. That's your right to carry it.
If you don't like
This guy believes what he's saying, by
I
the
don't
way.
like it, then you can carry it. I'm not
By the way,
doing it.
pause.
I'm not-
Listen, to the average person, tell me who you want on your side. Tell me who you want to be friends with. Tell me who you want as a citizen. Tell me who's a net positive to your country. Tell me who's more grateful. Tell me who's more thankful for your country. Tell me who's better for you. Tell me who should we should make more into a hero. Who should we protect more? This clown or the other guy that's trying to defend his kids? Do we not value great parents, great fathers, great men, great leaders that are willing to stand up for this incredible country? Do we value that? Then turn that man into a hero. Now, by the way, I would love to have this whole different conversation I was having with Merle Tikrin and my sister about doing an event in Glendale at the biggest hall and bringing all these parents, because I got a message for these Armenian parents that are doing this. And I think, anyways, that's a whole different thing. I don't want to get into it right now. But all I'm saying is I am so proud, and maybe proud is one word, but I want to add another one. I am so proud and honored to have half of my blood be Armenian, to see the representation of these incredible fathers and mothers that are brave to stand up to this pathetic hypocrisy, this bullshit woke agenda that has convinced so many people to think this is noble and we ought to sit there and be tolerant about it. I respect you for fighting. To every single Armenian parent, to every single Armenian individual that you got a sibling, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle. There was a 90-year-old grandmother standing there talking to one of these clowns in a very calm way. Like, what are you doing? I got so much respect for you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
You know how they say that we're living in a clown world. Every up is down, left is right. This is just a case example. Exhibit A, you have an American, born and raised in America, hates America, wants to burn the USA flag. Yep. You have an immigrant, an Armenian immigrant, speaking in a thick accent, defending the flag. One is trying to burn the American flag. One is basically saying, do not touch this fucking flag. Okay, I'm not going to touch your LGBT woke
Rainbow flag.
Do your thing, unicorn.
Yep.
Don't touch this flag. And you can tell the in his voice, he meant it.
Of course.
He would die for his beliefs because he knows what it's like on the other side of the country, other side of the world. It's really pathetic. It's a clown fucking world.
It really is.
And if anybody doesn't understand what's going on Twitter here and having the ability to see unedited videos so you can see what is being said, when is being said, this is not getting edited and put on mainstream media. This is not going on the news. On the news, they portray it as a bunch of freak parents that are upset, that are against progressive values and the rights of other people. Baloney. What these people are is upset about what you're trying to teach their kids. And thanks to Twitter, you've got all sorts of these wonderful accounts that I was looking at yesterday, Pat, that it was not cut. They're just saying, look at what this person said. Look at what this person said. You're able to see the truth of what's going on there, including, this woke woman who actually stood and was speaking to the school board, and she mentioned the genocide and denied it. So you had a genocide denier on top of this, hitting to the core of something that happened to the Armenian community, that we need if we've got St. Patrick's Day, if we've got Martin Luther King Day, we need a day on the American calendar to recognize what happened with the Armenian genocide. And you got this woman and I'm going to call her trans because she had the balls to stand there and make a comment and invoke a comment about the genocide while she's making a comment. So she's clearly poking and triggering these parents that are outside. And I was thankful that I could see a 360-degree view of all these folks to see really what was happening there, because this is not the coverage you were getting on the media.
No, this is, again, respect to you guys for what you're doing, to every single Armenian. And by the way, this isn't just Armenian. I know a lot of Hispanics. They don't stand up for this. I know our company, half of it is Hispanic. And I'm talking every kind of Hispanic. They don't stand up for this stuff. They do not stand up for this stuff. Okay, this is not the game they play. This is not what they want to do. They have strong values and principles. They don't support decisions like this. By the way, we're talking about Trump. We're talking about Biden. I posted a poll on Twitter. Can you go to my Twitter account if you could? Just right there, go to my Twitter account and refresh it. Refresh it so all this stuff can be. No, go back to, just refresh it from the top. There you go. And then go to the poll and zoom in a little bit. I asked the following question. How much do you trust the current justice system in America? Okay. The answers are, pick one of them, by the way. Just vote on one of them yourself, Rob. Look at that.
Zero.
Okay, look at that right there. 3,574 people voted 44 minutes ago. 61.3% said zero. 27.3% said minimal. Wow. That means 89% said minimal to zero. 89% said minimal to zero. 9.3% said somewhat. 2.1% said fully. I can guarantee you the fully are 100% vaccinated and they have all their
and they wear masks in the car.
They're 100%. They were wearing masks when they put the fully one right there, by the way. So that just kind of tells you the state of the current economy. Anyways, we can go to the next topic. I'll finish it up with you here. You were going to say something?
Well, I mean, it's look, I like just peel this back a little bit. I have conversations with people on all political sides of the aisle, okay? And what I like having conversations with is people that are not Trump fans, not MAGA world, people that voted for Biden and say, what do you think about what's going on here? What do you think about this situation? What do you think about what's happening with Trump? What do you think about what's happening with the LGBT woke? The problem that I have is we're so polarized. It's like, if you voted for Biden, you must be a gay liberal Democrat, obviously, right? It's like, if you voted for Trump, you must have been there storming the Capitol on January 6th. It's a broad spectrum. And what I like understanding is when people are like, yeah, I voted for Biden, but I don't really like what's going on here on the left here. It's not, I've got kids at school. I don't like this shit. And I'm not a Trump supporter, but I don't support this. And it's a very nuanced debate here. Same with this. It's like, I know plenty of Democrat people. They're not woke Antifa people. Just like I know plenty of, DeSantis type people who aren't on the MAGA camp. It's a very nuanced debate here. But when everybody across the aisle, everyone across the spectrum politically is seeing something like this and they're like, this is ridiculous. this is freaking ridiculous. That's when you understand that it's really a situation that is just completely
All right, let's go to the next
nonsensical.
story. So this week, multiple people made announcements that they're running. Chris Christie, I don't know if you've heard of him before. He announced he's running. He's the former governor of New Jersey. Mike Pence announced he's running as well. Insider came out. I showed it to you guys yesterday when Insider on their Instagram profile, when Mike Pence's announcement was made, I don't know what the article said, but it was not good. They said something like, Mike Pence made an announcement that he's running and nobody cared.
I thought he was leading in the polls, Mike Pence.
Let me read the article of what it said if I have it.
And he did say something, Pat, along the lines that if Trump is the nominee, he kind of will support it.
Here you go.
That?
It says, Pence made an announcement, but no one cares about Mike Pence. This is Insider. Insider is liberal. It's Insider Business if you want to go to it. Insider Business, if you go to it, you'll see they said nobody cared. Nobody cared about what he had to say. And then Tim Scott goes on The View and rails against the host, offensive comments about him. He crushed it, by the way, okay, when he went on. You can just zoom in real quick, Rob. Just zoom in right there yourself, and you'll be able to see it. No one cares about Mike Pence. Insider saying that.
Insider, yeah.
Okay, but the YouTube story is kind of weird on what came out this last week. This came out of nowhere, okay, when an announcement like this was made by YouTube. YouTube reckless to stop policing false claims on election fraud, Biden's campaign says. This is a Reuters story. The Biden campaign strongly criticizes YouTube's decision to cease policing false claims about the election fraud, deeming it reckless and warning of potential violence. YouTube announced its policy change, citing concerns about curtailing political speech while acknowledging that removing content did combat some misinformation. The platform's decision to stop removing false claims related to the 2020 election is seen as controversial and concerning. Biden's campaign spokesperson Kevin Munoz emphasizes that the policy changes does not erase the fact that Biden legitimately won the 2020 election, expressing concern about the role of social media companies in spreading lies during that period. Now, here's a part when you see a story like this. Why is YouTube doing this? Okay, let's go logical. Let's go in every way we want. First of all, YouTube's ad revenue is down 2.6, the highest drop they've ever had from the day YouTube got started. First time ever. Their ad revenue is down 2 point, right there, zoom in, TechCrunch. YouTube continues to see ad revenue decline 2.6% year over year. Yeah. This is not a good look for YouTube, okay? Because they have investors, YouTube, it shows the results there, where they were at and where they're at right now. So they're sitting around saying, what the hell is going on? Rumble on the other side keeps signing people left and right, okay? Rumble is indirectly holding these guys accountable. Twitter is indirectly holding these guys accountable. If, God forbid, report comes out that Tucker's show on Twitter made him $2.2 million in a month or something like that, YouTube could be crushed.
Big time.
And what I mean by YouTube could be crushed, here's the thing nobody thinks about, okay? Nobody thinks about. Nobody realizes that the biggest thing about bullies is bullies are only bullies until somebody stands up to them. And you know what is the typical mindset of a bully? What is the typical mindset of a bully? The typical mindset of a bully is that he or she is going to have that kind of power forever. Mm-hmm. And it's the biggest lie. If you have a monopoly on social media, you feel like we're going to have a control of this forever. They had it for a few years. They don't have it anymore. If we have a monopoly on mainstream media, we can do whatever we want. Oh, yeah? See what's changing? If we have a monopoly, we can push the agenda with ESG, and our name is BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Oh, really? Okay, you keep doing it. I'll see what's happening right now. We'll cover a story with Wall Street Journal if this ESG stuff is working. But the point here with YouTube, I applaud them for going this direction. If YouTube chooses to go back to allowing people from both sides to go and comment without inciting violence, but they're going out there and giving their thoughts, their opinions, they allow that to stay, YouTube will be King Kong again. But if they don't, this is by far the worst time ever for YouTube to play the same political games they played in June of 2020 when they, listen, I remember one time Mario and I sitting there watching YouTube. I don't know how many videos were taken on YouTube suddenly for us. 10, 20, 30, 40. I remember one time. And it was like, oh, boom, we did this interview, taken out. We did this interview, taken out. We did this interview, taken out. Our RFK interview, where he talks about what he thought happened to his father and who killed him. That was taken down. Our RFK interview had a couple million views after a week or two, was taken out. Whatever the timeline was, it could have been a month or two before they took it down. But if YouTube goes this direction, good for them. If they don't, capitalism is here. Capitalism works. Competition is going to take their lunch. Not because I said so, because it always has since day one, especially with companies that become arrogant, thinking they have a monopoly, and monopolies don't last forever.
You think it'll help out, or you think it's too late for them because now there's Twitter and there's all these?
No, they're so massive, it's not too late. They have everybody. I mean, they have Mr. Beast. They have everybody. They have music. They have so many kids. And by the way, here's the other part. You know how much the biggest YouTuber made last year? $58 million. You know what Jake Paul made off YouTube last year? $45 million. You know that guy that does the toy reviews? You know the guy?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Ryan?
Ryan.
Ryan's World.
You know what Ryan made last year? Can you put Ryan's income last year? Ryan made $28 million last year off YouTube.
The kid,
Ryan's
right?
parents made
Ryan's
20
parents,
million.
yeah.
I mean, $28 million, I want to say he made. What's the number? Can you see the income, what he made last year? On a list of top 10 biggest YouTubers, you'll see he made $28 million. I think that's old. And Jake Paul made $45 million off YouTube. YouTube is still, I mean, listen, Jake Paul made $45 million. Rumble's revenue is roughly $100 million. Revenue. And one of YouTuber's talent made $45 million. That's a big difference. And Rumble has to figure out, I'm sorry, $35 million in earnings. My apologies. I was off by $7 million. No. But the point is, there you go, $35 million. So the point is, there's still King Kong. But King Kong is starting to realize, hey, man, maybe we have to allow capitalism to do its part, and people got to have different opposing opinions. Tom?
Well, there also is something luring in the background. It's called Section 230. And Section 230 is the safe harbor law that allows YouTube and Twitter and others to actually moderate, and they are shielded federally from liability for what happens on freedom of speech. And what they don't want, they also do not want a conservative Republican to mess with Section 230. Users and services cannot be sued, and that's what they want.
Tom.
They have there. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to play nice because they don't want Section 230 to be changed. Because if it does change, it changes their liability. It changes what they can and can't do. It makes it that if they were to censor someone, they're actually censoring free speech and exposes them to a lot of things. They want Section 230 to say, hey, YouTube, do whatever you do. You operate as a publisher, cut people off, allow people there, and then
massive point you're making.
And then, but you want to be a liberal? Want to be a liberal voice? Censor all the conservatives. That's your choice, YouTube. They don't want Ron DeSantis or a certain Donald J. Trump to come in and say, we have fixing Section 230. I'm tearing it in half.
Yeah,
that's not what they want. And by the way, it's in the gun sites of a lot of conservatives. And yes, I said gun sites.
Yeah, there you go.
Tom, you do a Bill Clinton impersonation way better than Trump. You want to try that again? Vinny does it way better.
You're crazy.
If I was president, all this crap wouldn't be happening.
There you go.
There it is.
There he is. There he is.
Guys, let's go to the next story here. So California Governor Gavin Newsom proposes 28th Amendment to the Constitution to combat gun violence. This is a USA Today story. Newsom proposes 28th Amendment to the Constitution aimed at addressing gun violence. The proposed amendment includes raising the minimum age to purchase a gun from 18 to 21, implementing universal background checks, establishing waiting periods to gun purchases, and prohibiting civilians from buying assault weapons. Newsom's proposal seeks to strike a balance between enacting common sense gun safety laws while respecting the Second Amendment and America's gun-owning tradition. Adding a constitutional amendment would require significant support and ratification from 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the state, making the process challenging. Newsom to collaborate with grassroots sports. Newsom's plans to collaborate with grassroots supporters, elected leaders, and coalition across the nation to gather support for similar resolutions in other states. Tom, what's Newsom doing with this here?
Well, first of all, this is a standard political plank populist statement. He's speaking to the liberal base about gun control. And what he's trying to do is put safety front and center. I think people should be 21. Don't you think that's a good idea? You know, how do you argue against that? No. A 10-year-old should have a gun. It's hard to argue that side. Then what about background checks? What about gun shows selling a private sale out of the trunk of your car? Shouldn't there be a background check and you have to fill out a form to sell your car to somebody and drop it off at DMV? Why shouldn't you have to do that with a gun? All of that sounds good, except there's a Trojan horse here. The Trojan horse is prohibiting civilians from buying assault weapons. And inside it, the definition of assault weapon will expand and expand and expand. You know, an automatic weapon, classic machine gun, that's an assault weapon. And pretty soon, your Remington 410 bore that you're hunting pheasant with will be called an assault weapon. That's the Trojan horse. But the odds of getting this through all the states is very, very low. What he's doing is talking to the liberal base, and he's trying to plant the seeds. This is one of the planks I have, and I'm running on gun control, running against shootings. This is one of the planks in his campaign. He's trying to get the DNC to pay attention to him and to allow him to be a candidate for president if they flip the switch on Joe Biden. But what's in there? This is a Trojan horse. The assault weapon list will just keep expanding. That's the design.
You know, you used a word that I think is very apropos. You said he's appealing to the populist base because gun control and figuring out these fucking mass shooting situations actually is very popular. Now, I do agree with you that there's definitely a Trojan horse aspect of this, and the concern certainly from the 2A people is that they're coming after your guns. I don't think that's on the agenda, but if that's what you feel, totally entitled to that. But I do think there is a deep yearning in this country to figure this out, guys. Something needs to get done here. The status quo of just a shooting every 21 hours, RFK mentioned this. He said, in Switzerland, there hasn't been a mass shooting like this in schools or in general in 20 years.
21 years.
And this happens every 21 hours here in America. Now, is Gavin Newsom approach the perfect situation, the perfect approach? Arguable. We'll see. But I actually applaud him for doing something about this. Now, are there deeper motivations here? Is this an appeal to the DNC to become the next president? We all know that Biden is running on empty, yet he's the front runner here. I think when I think of fake politician, the first name that comes to mind is Gavin Newsom. But there is some genuine desire to get this figured out because the normalcy and just another shooting is actually disgusting.
But don't you think that the guns, again, it's always going to be about the guns, but what I think RFK even said too is, when are we going to address the mental health situation? The fact that in the past, 20, 30 years, to get into the mindset to take a gun, just a regular person, they always interview the students around this person. The majority of the time, they're like, we had no idea. What makes somebody go into a school and shoot children? Okay, and that's something with your brain, and that's when the drugs start coming in, all the drugs,
fentanyl, the Prozac,
all the
depression stuff,
the depression for the kids, and then, but guess what? You can't talk shit about the drugs and get into the mental side because Big Pharma is making billions off pumping these drugs into these kids. You can't go against these guys. How much do we learn, Adam?
Vinny, I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
To me, the mental health situation, the drug situation is step 10. Okay, meaning like that's not going to happen overnight.
Of course.
Some sort of sensible gun control, some sort of situation. You know, I'm an advocate of two things. Why aren't police in front of schools? Why aren't armed people in front of schools? You know, many individuals make a great case of like, CNN, you've got armed guards here. Fox News, you've got armed guards here. Buildings have armed guards. Why don't we have that?
Yeah.
And it's, why don't we have that in front of schools?
RFK said something during the Twitter Spaces. He said if he were to be president, he would treat schools like they were airports.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a mass shooting at an airport?
Never. Good point.
Compared to the mass shootings that happen at schools. But that was step one, was treat them like airports.
Yeah, exactly. And mental health. And then my second point was, and I know this is controversial, these families of these mass shooters, there needs to be accountability with these families. Okay, I'm not saying you need to lock them up, they need to go to jail for this. But the families of these people that do you could kill 50 people and then the one kid just rots in jail. What about the family? What about the people that raised this kid? Their legacy, their name, their bloodline, there needs to be some accountability with these people. They're raising savages.
Yeah.
You know, listen, for
Tate
me,
talked about this.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the most important candidates right now who is talking about stuff that nobody else is talking about, but is necessary, is RFK. And RFK, he had us live on Twitter Space, and his live was 300,000 people were on. Musk, talked about a bunch of different things. Elon Musk hosted a Twitter Space event in 2024 presidential candidate RFK, where Kennedy praised Musk for defending free speech and rescuing American democracy. However, Twitter criticized Musk for giving a platform to Kennedy, who has been banned from social platforms for spreading misinformation. During the event, Kennedy spread misinformation about COVID-19, calling it a bioweapons problem, and accused traditional media organizations of being propaganda vessels. He also blamed President Joe Biden for steering Democrats towards war. In the midst of the event, Musk revealed that Twitter's revenue was down by half, suggesting potential financial challenges for the social media platform. Let's stay on RFK here. So this guy explains how, what's the difference between us and Switzerland? 21 years, 21 hours, right? We had a school mass shooting 21 hours ago, and there was one in Virginia, I think 2 days ago. And he says Switzerland hasn't had a school mass shooting for 21 years. What's the difference? They have the same amount of guns per capita, give or take. So then the question that became with Tate, when the question was, what's changed between now and 1950, right? What's changed? And that led to an incredible conversation. If you pull up what I just sent you, Rob, because the question was, well, do people own more guns today than before? Well, no. Percentage of households in the United States owning one or more firearms from 1972 till today, it's about the same. Look at that. It was even higher in 1972, 43. We even went as high as 47% in 1990 under Clinton, under Bush Sr., I believe, right? That's Bush Sr., yeah, under Bush Sr. So 47%, and we were as low as 37%, 2013, that's what, under Obama, and then 37% also the lowest under Trump, 2019. So the two lowest times of gun ownership the last 50 years was under Trump and under Obama. So one cannot say, well, people own more guns today than ever before, but there's a couple things that change. One, do you know there's only two countries in the world that can advertise, big pharma? One is U.S., one is New Zealand. Do you know when that law was passed? Rob, if you can go Google, when did the law pass to big pharma advertise U.S.? Just type in big pharma advertise U.S. law. It was, I believe, in 1985. Well, that's a big difference because they could advertise in 1985 and versus they cannot in 1980. There's a 1987. Okay, 1987 when that passed. Well, that's a big difference that they can start advertising, right? Okay, now go and take a look at when Prozac came out. Go look at when Prozac came out. What year did Prozac come out? I think it's 88 or 89 is when they started it. There you go, 88.
Yeah, 88.
88, January 88 is when they started selling it. Okay, so far from 70 till today, what changed? One, advertising of big pharma, which those guys started making more money. So CNN, all these MSNBC, all these big media companies are getting their money from what? Big pharma. Two, Prozac. We didn't have something like Prozac. It's pretty bad when on these drugs. Can you type in drugs that the disclaimer says suicide? Drugs, disclaimer, suicide. Suicide tendency. If you can type that and bring it up. Drugs that say this, if you take this, there's a possibility of suicide. Pharmaceuticals, maybe type in pharmaceuticals instead of putting drugs. Pharmaceuticals. So you buy these pharmaceuticals, and in there it says there's a side effect. Yeah, there you go, side effects of suicide. Let's see what comes up. Go a little lower, because the first one is a hotline. Go a little lower, helps, and go a little lower. Medications with suicide risk. There you go, click on that. Zoom in. Did you click on it or no?
Yes, it's loading.
Okay, so you got all these medications that people are taking. Why would they put disclaimer of suicide on there? Why would you do that? What's the purpose of putting that in there? Medications, here's a list of medications that have been linked to suicidal thoughts and behavior. Accutane, a skin drug. Benzyl, okay? Look at all those lists there on, keep going.
The list goes on and on, I think is the point.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Depakote, whatever that thing is. I think that's like a Zoloft type of a thing. That's for bipolar, right?
Prozac.
Keep going lower. Prozac, right there. Okay, Prozac, suicidal tendencies, right? What else do you have there that's suicidal tendencies? Keep going lower. Okay, I mean, listen, probably not a good idea to allow these guys to advertise. Probably not a bad idea for the next president to say, hey, Guess what? Moving forward, Big Pharma, you can't advertise anymore. Why not? There's 200 countries in the world. Only 2 countries allowed to advertise, us and New Zealand. We're not going to advertise no more. Well, you can't do that. I understand you're not going to like it because lobbyists are going to go crazy, but we got to cut the stuff. So I think there's certain things that has changed from 72 or 1950 till today that they have to pay attention to. And let's not forget during COVID what they did. Closing everybody down, shutting everybody down, stay home, don't go out. And to the point where I'll give you an article here next that the Surgeon Attorney General came out and is talking about the loneliness epidemic. No wonder this happened. You're the one that said stay home. That was your idea. Now you're saying it's bad. There's a lot of people that said it was bad. We're like, no, it's the right thing to do. No, it wasn't the right thing to do.
Well, it's not just suicide. I think that's one component of it. I mean, the list here is very long. Depression, anxiety, restlessness, trouble sleeping, panic attacks, anger, irritability, agitation, aggression, dangerous impulses, extreme increases in activity. Talking. I think the common thing here is you hear when people are pilled out, they turn into what? Zombies.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're a zombie, you have what is known as apathy. You don't care. You don't care whether you live or die. You don't care if other people live or die. And that is what happens when you are pilled out and you're Prozac out and all these pills. You know, Pat was going A through Z here. The list was too long to even read all these drugs here. Now, back to RFK. What's the exact opposite of apathy? Empathy, understanding. His appeal to people was saying, listen, I understand these people. I understand gun culture. We just went down the list here. It was as low as 37, as high as 44. 40% of Americans have guns. It is what it is. Okay, that number changes and goes up and down a little bit, but 40% of Americans have guns. To speak to his empathy and to speak to his credibility and to speak to his authority on this situation, if you recall this, he said, listen, and he downplayed it. It was so incredible. He goes, listen, I've lost 2 family members to gun violence. Oh, really? What family members? How about freaking JFK?
And his father.
And his father, Bobby Kennedy. It's like if there's anybody, his father, and his uncle, if there's anybody that has the authority, that has the credibility and the empathy to speak about things like that, it is RFK.
And Pat, speaking of RFK, I am so happy that he's, because mind you, I never thought I'd be saying this about a Democrat. I genuinely like what he's saying and what he's doing. And bro, you know how lucky he is? Thank God that it's 2023 and we have camera phones and cameras everywhere. And it's not 1963 where the only person that had a camera was Abraham Zapruder. Because him talking this type of mess against COVID,
what a point.
Pat, against the media, against Biden, against corruption, he would have been taken out toot sweet, bro. But thank God for technology and where we are right now that he can say these things. And mind you, I think he's such a big threat to the left. I'm interested to see what they're going to do, Pat, to try to take his ass down like they're taking Trump
And this goes
down.
back to my initial point. Just because you have a D to the next of your name does not mean you don't have credibility. Just like if you have an R next to your name doesn't mean that you're some right-wing extremist. It's a very nuanced argument here. It's a very nuanced situation. And you look at people like Tulsi Gabbard, who we had on less than a month ago, former Democrat, very credible. RFK, arguably the legacy of all legacies of Democrats, Kennedy family, very credible. Definitely shaking things up. Even Joe Manchin, I'm a big fan of his. It just the polarization of the politics these days. Once you get through the R&D situation, you realize, let me see the substance that this person is talking about. Someone like RFK is making waves in a big way.
There's been a lot of discussion, and people say, oh, it's tin hat and conspiracy theorists that talk about the uniparty that say, look, the Democrats and Republicans are basically the same underneath, and you have a MAGA side over here, and then you have a Bernie side over here, but then there's this cloud in the middle that kind of goes along with each other on drug advertising and a lot of major initiatives. And then no less than the Wall Street Journal just had an opinion piece yesterday or today, I think it may have been today, talking about, is it time for an American independent party, and talking about a lot of the ways and things that are happening. So maybe the common sense starts to come out, that the common sense and common American starts to come out in the form of a true independent party, and maybe there's deeper truths about the whole concept of the uniparty underneath with the extremes at the fringes.
Yeah, Pat, let me tee this up for you, because the video that you did about being a free thinker and being an outsider is so apropos these days. You have insiders, the swamp, and you have outsiders that shake things up. And you compared the Kennedy family to the Trump family and being anti-establishment. I think it's a very important.
It's the hardest position to take. It's the hardest position to take because it comes with the most hate. Easiest position to take is establishment. Follow the herd. Follow everybody. It's safe. You got support. You got backup. to go against the establishment? Are you kidding me? Who has been, actually think about this, who has been the biggest presidents that have been anti-establishment presidents?
Trump, obviously.
Who else?
Trump and JFK.
JFK.
Those are the top of the list.
Lincoln.
And then you have
Lincoln was
Lincoln
one-
even went against his, saying, "What are you guys doing? We gotta let these guys free. What are you talking about?" They didn't like him. They didn't like what Reagan was doing. They didn't like, there's a lot of these guys that you look at that they go after. But it's going to be interesting seeing what happens. Trump's going to keep saying what he's saying. He talked about the tweet out there. But anyways, let's go to the next story here. Next story, Tom, I want to go into a couple business stories here with you. One is somewhat business. Actually, let's just go to the business one here first. Half the world's biggest companies are downsizing office space amid hybrid working. This is an insider story. Here we go. Defined as half the world's largest companies, defined as those with over 50,000 employees, plan to downsize their office space by 10 to 20% by 2026. That's a real number, by the way. As hybrid working becomes more prevalent, while many companies are embracing hybrid work, 31% are adopting an office-first approach. The shift in office space strategy is driven by a broader range of business factors beyond the pandemic, with companies seeking to optimize their office usage and offer flexibility to employees. However, 55% of all surveyed companies anticipate increasing their office footprints in the next 3 years, particularly mid-sized companies. So bigger companies are downsizing. Smaller to mid-sized companies are getting more office space. Tom, when you see this, what do you think about with this article?
Well, the first thing is, your government under the cover of COVID, sort of was pushing the agenda for work from home and forcing lockdowns. And what they have unwittingly done is triggered a waterfall. And I'm speaking to you, Joe Biden, is triggered a waterfall that is about to be a calamity in commercial real estate. Because now the companies are saying, well, maybe I can. There's two sides to it. There are companies that are asking people to come back to work, and we're seeing those announcements every day. Apple says people got to come back to work. Amazon says, and all the people get upset. Well, then what you don't see is underneath it all is the companies that say, well, maybe I can make some of the remote work for cost reasons, and those people are not getting promoted, and maybe I need less office space. And that waterfall effect has had that their larger companies are needing less space and less demand for leases. And so now the commercial real estate market is suffering with less demand. And we can thank this crash coming in the sector of the economy to COVID and lockdowns that triggered this whole work from home debate.
It's interesting you're saying that, because when you look at numbers with commercial real estate, it says commercial real estate crash still looming over the U.S. economy, and it's not going away. The U.S. economy faces looming threat of a commercial real estate market crash at $1.5 trillion in commercial mortgage debt is due by the end of 2025. Tighter credit conditions, higher borrowing costs, and declining property values due to remote work have increased the risk of default. Fitch Ratings estimate that 35% of pooled securities commercial mortgages due between April and December of 2023, totaling, ready, $5.8 billion, will not be able to be refinanced. Office and retail property valuations could potentially drop as much as 40% this year. Let me say that one more time. Office and retail property valuations could drop as much as 40% this year, Tom. That means a $10 million property is $6 million.
That's correct.
Okay. According to Lisa Chalet, CIO of Morgan Stanley Wealth Management. It's not like it's a regular person saying this.
These are people who know. And what's that last bullet say?
Small and regional banks holding about 80% of commercial real estate market outstanding debt are the main source of credit. The industry upheaval could lead to more restrictive lending standards, making it harder for businesses and households to obtain loans.
And by the way, this is why, and I'll say this openly, I'm long on JP Morgan stock, because if those small regional banks
keeps going to JP Morgan,
small regional banks fail, who's got the best credit rating and the best capital structures for them to pick it up? JP Morgan.
So you're saying buy stock now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm in. I'm just said.
Okay.
I said it openly so I could be disclosed.
Gotcha.
I'm long JP Morgan, but the reason I'm long JP Morgan is I believe they're about to take advantage of the additional losses that are going to happen in small and regional banks who are holding the credit. Because who does the banks in downtown LA? Glendale Federal, and other people like that. It's the local economy that have those big commercial dollars. Who does Suarez go to help the economy, down in Miami with big bank lending? SunTrust, that's who he goes to. These are local partners building up local cities, and they're about to get, local shots in the chops.
Yeah, we've already. I mean, when you say J.P. Morgan, you're talking about J.P. Morgan Chase, who's the CEO of that. Jamie Dimon, the writing's been on the wall. How many regional banks has he already gobbled up? Right? How much money has moved to the big banks? But Pat, let me touch on that first story
He's
you talked about.
capitalized to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got the money. Is basically what it is. It's so funny here. This first story that half the world's biggest companies are downsizing office space. I've never heard this term before. "Quote unquote, office first." What does that remind you of a little bit? America first. Office first. Yeah. There's a metaphor here. It's almost like you talked about this on the Andrew Schultz podcast. Shout out to Andrew Schultz, by the way, and his squad. Great podcast. But you said, what's wrong with being a nationalist? Nationalist gets a bad name. Obviously, we know some certain. Then when you hear nationalism,
funny mustache guy.
Yeah, there's a funny mustache guy. But what's wrong with loving your country? What's wrong with loving America? What's the opposite of nationalist? You said globalist. And we're seeing the Klaus Schwabs of the world, the World Economic Forum here. There's a storyline here. Office first. Get your ass in the office. Work, right? Versus globalism. Work from anywhere. Work from home. Don't come into the office. Don't have any contact with people you're working with. What are we talking about here? There's no borders. Why borders? There's a metaphor here, right? But I think it's important to see here that 55% of companies are actually going to increase their office space. What we're realizing is you need to be adaptable, you need to be flexible, and there is a happy medium here. Some people, how many people that work for PHP don't work in the home office, right? They work all across the country, but they do have satellite offices, regional offices. I think that where we're at today, the sign of the times, being adaptable, being flexible, is what works for you, what works for your company. A company knows, all right, 10 to 20%, we're going to downsize here. Maybe they don't need to be here. 55%, no, your ass is going to be in the office here. There is a storyline here. Nationalists, globalists, work from anywhere, office first. At the end of the day, it's a very nuanced discussion here. It's not black and white. Zoom, everything with technology. People can work from anywhere. But at the end of the day, culture, what does it say? Culture eats what for breakfast?
Strategy.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. If we didn't work from here to this podcast together every single day, I doubt we would have the same impact.
Let me just transition that into what a perfect transition on what you just said. I don't think there's a better story for us to go to than page 21. If you want to go to page 21. Watch this. This is where contradiction and hypocrisy is exposed. So this is the new Surgeon General advisory raises alarm about devastating impact of the epidemic of loneliness and isolation in the United States. This is an article from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, can you pull him up and see how long he's been a Surgeon General? Has issued an advisory addressing the crisis of loneliness and isolation in the United States, which affects approximately half of American adults. The consequences include a 29% risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, a 50% increased risk of developing dementia in older adults, and a doubled risk of depression amongst those who frequently feel alone. Dr. Murthy proposes a national strategy to advance social connection, highlighting the need to prioritize social connection as critical public health issue alongside tobacco, obesity, and substance use disorders. The strategy aims to mobilize the health sector, reform digital environments, deepen research on social disconnection, and cultivate a culture of connection. By strengthening social infrastructure, implementing pro-connection policies, and promoting meaningful social connections, the strategy aims to build a healthier, more resilient nation and addresses the impact of loneliness on diseases such as heart disease, stroke, dementia, and depression. Okay, how long has this guy been the Surgeon General? Can you go to it? How long has he been in?
So he's the 19th and 21st Surgeon General. So his first stint was 2014 to 2017, and then he came back in office in 2021.
So 2014 to 2017, which means Barack Obama, the only reason it says Trump is because Trump fired him, replaced him with somebody, and then he came back in 4 years later under Obama, under Biden, which we know where he leans politically, okay? By the way, This was the same guy that was supportive of the shutdown. This is the same guy that said, hey, essential, non-essential. So the level of arrogance to think how short-term thinking Americans are that they forgot what this guy stood for. You read this article, if I didn't tell you who was written by, you would say, man, the guy that said this, what a freaking noble guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What a guy that cares about so many people, for him to say the consequences of, loneliness and isolation in the United States. 29% increase in risk of heart disease, 32% increase in stroke, 50% increase in risk of developing dementia. Really? So I wonder if the amount of people that end up dying from COVID, those that actually had COVID, not the people that died because of obesity, not the people that died because it was a common cold, but they categorized it as a COVID, let's just say. I'm talking the net. People that died strictly from COVID is what they died from, versus how many end up dying from stroke, heart, dementia, loneliness, depression. I wonder what the long-term effects of that decision is going to be versus the short-term effects, okay? Is there a reason why states like Florida did so well? You know what I would do if I was DeSantis' camp? I would take this story and I would say, hey, we did exactly what you're saying to do 3 years ago, 2 years ago. You're saying it now, but it's too late. People are moving to Florida because we allowed people to live, and they're happy. People in Florida are happy. This policy produced miserable people. Now you want to write this paper to sound like you're noble? Now you want to do this? If I'm Trump or DeSantis' camp, probably more DeSantis' camp, I would be using this story here to talk about the effect it's having on people today.
Fully agree, PBD. Fully agree. I mean, we've learned the term social distancing. That was the first time we've ever heard that in our lifetime. And this article talks about cultivate a culture of cultural connection. What's the opposite of distancing?
That's so
connection.
It's comical.
And you know what? There's a certain segment of the population that needs to hear this message, that needs to understand this message, and that is young men, especially young men under 35. Dr. Scott Galloway, NYU, talks about the most dangerous men in society are broke, lonely men on their phones, sitting at home all day. And those people, that situation was exacerbated during COVID, okay? Those people are struggling like hell right now. Social media apps, everything on dating apps, prioritize the top of the top. The top guys out there, they're doing just fine, okay? You think, what do they say? Ben Affleck in Boiler Room. You think money doesn't buy happiness? Look at the smile on my fucking face.
Yeah, from
everything's
ear to
good.
ear,
If you're doing okay, if you're a top G out there, things are fine. But the young guys out there that are working from home, not getting any action, not out there networking, they are struggling. And I empathize with these guys. What's the answer, though? You got to get out there. You got to work out. You got to improve. You got to work on yourself. Life happens outside of your phone. You have to get out there. The number one thing in life, the one thing I've realized in life, it all comes down to people and relationships and being able to interact with other people and have deep, actual connections. Life happens outside of your phone. You have to get out there and put the phone down and genuinely interact with other people. And that's the one thing we learned during COVID. And that's the one thing that was taken away from us. Social interaction and connection.
What do we do in Addison during COVID? What do we do?
We worked from the office every day.
Every day.
At the office.
When they said we're non-essential, we worked at the office every day. The only day I took off was one Sunday, 90 days straight. Every single flipping day. But so many people fell for this. No. Social distancing, no. They scared the crap out of so many people that they fell for this. You know what percentage of people fell for it the most? Those with bachelor degrees.
Oh, really?
Those with bachelor's degrees. You know who was the lowest? Those with MBAs. It's interesting. Do you remember that study that came out? Bachelor's degree was the highest, and then
PhDs and
then high school grads, they were lower to trust the whole social distancing than the bachelor's. The bachelor's degrees. What we got to do? Social distancing. Stay 6 feet away from your book when you read it, because God forbid, maybe the book has COVID. All these weird things that they fell for. Right?
Why do you think that was, PBD? Why do you think that was?
Because sometimes a bachelor's degree is a sign of you are a person that just goes after whatever the government tells you to do, and you can't question anything.
You're programmable.
Yeah, you're
programmable.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to be like, my man, no, I'm not doing this. One of the girls was at our house from the baseball thing. You weren't there. We were doing Dylan's baseball thing celebration. And a father's sitting there, and I said, so, hey, I look at his daughter. She's got a Chiefs sweater on. I said, oh, so you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan? No. So well, there's a school here that I'm a fan of that school. Oh, okay, cool. So is that the school you go to? No, I was going to a different school. What school were you going to? Well, I was going to XYZ. How long have you been going there? For many years. Why did you leave? And she just looked straight at her dad. Doesn't want to answer the question. And the dad is a stud, total stud of a guy. He's like, well, he's just kind of beat around the bush. I don't know, what's the reason? I said, listen, you're safe here. Why did you leave? He finally said, listen, we are so sick of all this woke agenda at this school. Tom, you know what the school is? The school is the school that, it's constant Pride Month, climate change. If you write a paper opposing LGBTQ, you could get an F because you're wrong in the teacher's eyes. Let me get this straight. They call and they teach parents to become conformers. I'm at a baseball hitting practice with Jen and Dylan and Senna. The father has his kid going to Pinecrest that's playing baseball there, and the father says, I had to call to apologize because if I don't, my son may possibly not play baseball. What the hell do you mean you have to call to apologize? Because it's their way or the highway. And you know what's happening? Those types of schools are gradually having an exodus.
Good.
Slowly but surely.
Good.
You can't be doing stuff like that. Parents are going to rise up and they're going to say, this is pathetic. I'm not following this here. Anyways, let's go to the next story. Unless, Tom, you have final thoughts. If you don't, we can go to the next story.
No, but the return to office seems to be a hell of a solution for people that are looking for social connection, pro-connection policies, and to have eyes on you with coworkers to say, how you doing?
Yeah.
What did Michael Saylor say?
What are you doing for lunch today? You want to go for lunch?
Yeah, you all right? How's your life?
What did Michael Saylor say when him and I were both late that one day during the Bitcoin conference? He goes, yeah, it's safe to say the people are back at work again right now. Saylor made a joke.
All right. Okay, so let's go to the next story here with Chris Licht. CNN CEO Chris Licht out after Trump town hall. Fallout. Brutal Atlantic article. This is a CNBC story. And then the reason why he got fired. Page 12, if you want to go to it. Page 12, where are we at here? Okay, there we go. Chris Licht is stepping down as CEO of CNN after just over a year in the position following a series of setbacks, including the cancellation of the CNN Plus streaming service. You put that on the guy. He had only been there for a year. And declining ratings, Warner Brothers Discovery, the parent company of CNN, announced the departure and stated that a search would be conducted internally and externally for a new CEO. Licht's exit was triggered by multiple factors, including a town hall event with former President Donald Trump that drew criticism and resulted in a rating drop. Additionally, rating drop, that a record-breaking rating. Additionally, an unflattering article in The Atlantic titled, Inside the Meltdown at CNN, contributed to the decision. In a memo to staff, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav took responsibility for the outcome and expressed appreciation for Licht's effort and dedication. And here's a story from Politico, the real reason behind Chris Licht getting fired. Chris Licht's departure as CNN CEO was influenced by a critical profile in The Atlantic. Again, same story. Licht was perceived as subservient to Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Savvy made changes that were seen as rebukes by CNN staff, that his distance from newsrooms and failure to charm their staff worsen his situation. Firing Licht will not solve CNN's problem. As the cable news industry is in decline, the new CEO will inherit a damaged organization and should learn from Licht's mistakes while building relationships with the staff. Tom.
Licht inherited a damaged organization.
Seriously.
Malik, do you have the chart we have on the ratings? It's from the Economist, the pink chart.
Quicksilver.
It was sent it to you today. Anyway, so the ratings disaster at CNN had started as soon as the election was over. And as soon as that election was over, suddenly all they had was COVID, number one. Chris Licht gets brought in by David Zaslav to be a turnaround specialist. He was a showrunner. This guy is a gifted showrunner. And by the way, he still is a gifted showrunner who had a very, very tough year at his job. He built Stephen Colbert's show. He built CBS This Morning. He built Morning Joe. So this is a showrunner, not a guy that's ready to run an organization. And PBD, we see people like this at the Vault Conference. People at the Vault Conference who are running great organizations versus people who are just kind of monolithic executives. Chris Licht is a showrunner hired by David Zaslav to turn around CNN. Take a look at this. What happened to ratings, Pat? Here's the chart. Right after the election, whammo, they all drop. Look at that rating drop when there's nothing to talk about Trump except January 6th, and it's COVID. Fox was the only one that moderated programming, and you can see their ratings dropped after the election cycle, but then leveled out closer to where they were beforehand.
Holy
see that?
Moly.
Whereas CNN and NBC, Pat, you see their ratings.
By the way, they peaked at the same exact level. Look at CNN and Fox. Same exact peak. Do you see it?
First week of November,
Oh, my
2020.
goodness.
The election.
So that's the mistake.
That's right. That was a mistake. So Zaslav doesn't bring in a turnaround guy. He brings in Chris Licht. And Chris Licht, by the way, what had happened at CNN? You know, CNN had the controversy of, who was that guy?
Jeff Zucker?
No,
the president?
The Zooming Jacker, Jeffrey Toobin.
Jeffrey Toobin masturbating on a Zoom call.
Remember that guy?
Yeah, they brought him back.
Yep. And then Cuomo. They had this issue with Cuomo. And then they had Don Lemon was already in the penalty box when Chris Licht walked in and said, hey, Chris, turn this thing around. And so he does CBS This Morning, and they said, what am I going to do? I've got this idea to put women on and do this just like I did CBS This Morning. I'll call it CNN This Morning. Well, you need to use Don Lemon. Why? Well, he's under contract. Why? That was a decision that he got forced into. We all know what happened there. Eventually, Lemon didn't get along with his estrogen-charged, co-host. And you look at what happened here, and they were already having it. So was it a good idea to let The Atlantic follow you around for an article? No. Was it by the way, CNN Plus was also canceled as he was walking in the door. So for everybody that says this was all on Chris Licht, a guy who wasn't a turnaround specialist was brought in. Not a good idea to do The Atlantic thing. And the couple things that he tried to build his shows, he was kind of hamstrung. That didn't work. And guess what came out this morning? A story is that the people that have been talking to the media and leaking thing is a bunch of Zucker loyalists who are now back where they were. But guess what? The other side of it is private equity people know David Zaslav's playbook. And you know what? CNN is only 5% of Warner Brothers Discovery. 5%. But it was 71% of the headlines for the last 6 months. That's not what you want.
No.
I think Zaslav's going to say, for what am I bid for this wounded puppy? I think that's where it's going. But I think they've been too hard on Chris Licht, even though there's some things he did, okay. Atlantic article, not a good idea.
By the way, just so people know who this guy was, he was the executive producer and the showrunner for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
A breakout show against other bigger shows.
Right, and as well as CBS's executive vice president of special programming. He's also known for having launched Morning Joe on MSNBC and the reboot of CBS This Morning. This is not a guy that's not like a lightweight guy. He's part of the Democratic. He is part of that community. He is a guy that's, willing to support that community. This guy was a qualified guy for that job, but they needed somebody to target and go after.
Now they're blaming him, but he walked into the Jeff Zucker mess.
And Pat, you guys are talking about CNN, Chris Licht. All this starts with one guy, all this demise. One guy saying 2 words to Jim Acosta. Fake news. This all started from that one moment, and it's gone all downhill from Trump to where the fake news comment. And then think about it. They put him on a town hall. They try to gain, they want to get some clout back. And then the viewers are like, why the hell did you put him on there? It all started with Trump. And I'm so happy that this is happening to everybody at that crappy-ass news network.
By the way, you said Jim Acosta. Do they know about when you were in Ukraine?
No, did they not know that?
Do you have that clip, Rob?
Oh, my goodness.
When you go ahead, you were going to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
You paid visit to Ukraine like 2 weeks ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, before we see that excellent video that you did while you were right on the grounds of Ukraine, which definitely wasn't fake whatsoever.
Nothing happened to me either.
The guy Chris Licht, number one, I don't think most people can pick him out of a lineup if you paid them. So he was there. He came in, a year ago? He took the place of Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker was running CNN for multiple decades. I actually had high hopes for this guy because I think if his campaign message was anything, it was he wanted to bring CNN more to the middle. Was that not what it was?
Yep.
That was kind of what he was looking to do. And I actually thought that was been a good move for them. But what we've realized is you need to play to your base. And CNN's base at this point is definitely on the left. Fox News' base is definitely on the right. How many people were up in arms when Tucker was let go from Fox News? Not a good look for them. But further proof that cable news is dying and that they're just looking for anything to basically as an excuse. Their ratings were up when Trump was there. And, when they did the town hall, they had Pence just there. Flop. Nobody really cared about that. But the interesting thing will be two things. What's next for this guy? Where's he going? Because he's going to be high in demand. I guarantee you that. And then who's next for CNN? Be very interesting. People are all up in arms on Linda Yaccarino being brought in as the Twitter CEO. Let's see who the new CEO of CNN is and see what they stand for.
Firing Chris Licht, the only person you can bring in is somebody that Zucker approves of.
Don Lemon?
No
It's
way.
got to be somebody that Zucker approves of. And you'll find somebody. Zucker's going to send a loyalist, but that doesn't mean the ratings are going to improve. To say your best show was when you had Trump back on, you know how embarrassing that is to the brand of CNN. That's what they're embarrassed of. And Licht was just trying to do his job. Go ahead, Rob. Play this clip when Vinny was in Ukraine working for CMM a couple weeks ago.
But who was I?
Yeah, go ahead. Watch this here.
We're going to go live with our in-the-field news correspondent, Jim Acosta.
I'm glad you made it.
Jim
Thank
is
you.
on the ground in Ukraine, directly in harm's
This is
way.
really- look how
Jim,
dangerous
how's
this
it
was.
looking out there?
Front lines.
Not good, Karen. I am literally in the trenches right now.
Look, I almost got killed.
It's insane. Russian forces have infiltrated
Rob, move
our
the-
stronghold. I am in a foxhole as we speak with a Ukrainian soldier. Forrest, want to say anything?
Look at
You're being attacked left and right.
Look at the explosion. There's gas. There's gas, man.
Explosions are happening left and right, and this weather is just adding insult to injury.
Look, I almost got shot. He doesn't even move.
Twice, as you can see, I stubbed
Your
my
level
big
of
toe
courage
really,
is-
really hard, and I got the clap. But none of that matters. The only thing that matters is reporting real news.
Real news.
In real time. Listen, if I don't make it out of here, somebody please tell my wife. And
Oh my God, Jim? Jim Acosta.
Who's this guy?
Yes.
Yeah, I love you.
Jim
You're
Acosta.
so convincing, man.
Thank you.
You know how many times I've fallen for your stuff?
I appreciate you. I appreciate
Can I get a picture with
I mean, yeah, I'm in the middle of shooting
It's
something.
unfreaking believable.
This is ridiculous.
Oh my God, CMM.
Yeah.
Oh, bro, you guys got to keep it up.
appreciate
You
it.
are so convincing. Keep lying for ratings. It's phenomenal.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thanks for the shot. Kelly, will you stop? The jig is up. All right, Boris, stop smoking.
That's
CMM.
It's
CMM. Bro, CMM.
Shout out,
Jim Acosta.
By the way, subscribe to Valuetainment Comedy.
Yeah.
If you want
Yeah.
to see more stuff like that. Vinny's
Don't play
doing that
games.
weekly.
Thank you. CMM. Centralized made-up media, baby.
Anyways, okay, so let's go to the next story. Next story we can go to is with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's first episode of Tucker on Twitter nets. It says 70 million, but that's June 7th. I think it's at 110 million right now, if not higher. Tucker is on fire, to say the least. He's absolutely crushing it with where he's at. The first episode, Twitter CEO Elon Musk acknowledged his high view count, but clarified that it only counts for views on the X Twitter app or web browser, excluding views from other sources like Google search results or Bloomberg terminals. Carlson chose Twitter as a platform for his show. After leaving Fox News, citing the platform's commitment to free speech, he expressed his hope that Twitter would provide a platform without gatekeepers, emphasizing his gratitude for the opportunity to be on a platform. But very quickly, by the way, second episode came out yesterday, which has got somewhere around 40 million views. And then immediately after his first episode, Fox News tells Tucker Carlson he violated his contract with new Twitter show. This is NBC News. Fox News informed Tucker Carlson's lawyer that he violated his contract with the network by releasing the first episode of his new show on Twitter. The breach of contract stated in a letter from Fox News general counsel Brandon Guger, who referred to Carlson's contract signed in November of 2019 and amended in February of 2021. Carlson's lawyer, Brian Friedman, argued that any legal action taken by Fox News would infringe on Carlson's First Amendment rights. Carlson's new show on Twitter, titled Episode 1, featured his unfounded claim that Ukraine was responsible for an attack on a dam in Russian-occupied territory, leading to devastating floods. Ukrainian President Zelensky and U.S. officials have accused Russia of the attack, while Russia denies any involvement. I mean, that's pretty... And yesterday, he's out there doing what he's doing yesterday. If you watch what he said yesterday, Twitter, a lot of people on Twitter are going back and forth saying, well, what is this guy saying? Is he trying to say something? Because a part of what he said in episode number 2, I think 90 seconds into it or 2 minutes into it, he says, by 2008, no one questioned that Barack Obama had a highly creepy personal life.
What? What creepy?
What highly creepy personal life is he talking about? But Tom, what do you think about what's going on here right now with Fox News suing Tucker or getting after him?
I love this. So let's go to one sentence that everyone will understand. It said, Fox sends a letter that said, Mr. Carlson's services shall be completely exclusive to Fox. That was under a contract with Fox. Fox pays Carlson specifically to be there. Now then, he goes on Twitter. Twitter's an open platform. And he put a video up on Twitter showing what he thinks. That's it. Does he have a contract with Twitter? No. Elon Musk has said so. There's no contract with this guy. As a matter of fact, Elon Musk went out of his way to put a tweet out, remember, that said there is no contract with Tucker Carlson. So he went out and did that. This is going to be tough for the Fox lawyer to get a judge to injunct and say, oh, yeah, well, you've got a contract with Fox. Your services are exclusive to Fox, and now you're providing services. Fox has got to successfully argue that he's providing services to Twitter. He's not. He's a free guy stating what he believes and put a video up on a open social media platform. I don't think Fox has an angle here, because what judge is going to say that?
How is he monetizing his content on Twitter?
That's exactly right. What's the contract? Or do you get casual monetization for cumulative views?
Does he?
I don't know.
I mean,
how does that work?
That's a good question.
If he doesn't, then there's no commercial relationship. Even just a casual commercial relationship where you click the button saying, yeah, send me a check if there's enough views and you can sell ads against it. But that still isn't a contract to provide services. I think he's in the clear. I think he knows he's in the clear. And I think that this is the only angle that Fox can take, but they got to find a judge that will injunct and say this.
Yeah, Musk made it clear that he's not paying him. He says, I also want to be clear that we have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever. Tucker is subject to the same rules and rewards of all content creators. Rewards means subscriptions and advertising revenue share coming soon, which is a function of how many people subscribe and the advertising views associated with the content. I hope that many others, particularly from the left, also choose to be content creators on this platform.
He's like the test run, Pat, and guess what? He'll do this, bro. Think about how brilliant this is. For 1 year, he's going to do this and get numbers at him like 75 million, 75, 80 million, 100 million. Once Fox lets him go, then they're going to say, okay, now it's time to start paying this dude. He's
more views
bank,
than the
bro.
entire cable news lineup that
Combined.
Exactly.
So that's a great move, bro. Get your name up there and then
absolutely crushing it.
Killing it, bro.
The guy has a very necessary voice. Clearly, the market wants to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
I personally think that he's the top, if not one of the top, opinion personalities out there. I don't consider him a journalist, meaning he'll say, he's admitted, sometimes I'll say things that aren't right and wrong, and he's not looking to get fact-checked these days, but when it comes to his opinion, people want to hear what he has to say.
I love that you said, Adam, it's opinion. You know the girl that was the executive, she's a producer, Caroline, that was on the flight with us?
Your new girlfriend.
She's gorgeous. No, she's married with kids. But anyway, we'll get into that later.
When does that ever stop?
Shut up. Never. Listen, we had a conversation where we're saying it's like your opinion, right, Tom? We're not even allowed to have an opinion about what's going on. Everything that we talk about isn't factual. I'm not getting fact checker. I'm not saying, hey, listen, this is a fact. I have an opinion. He has an opinion, like the Nord Stream pipeline, right? Like, in my opinion, why would one side do it? It's pretty much going to be the other side, and that's my opinion. I think they have to try to shut your ass up if you have an opinion that goes against their narrative. So that's what it is.
Thanks for your opinion, Vin.
You're welcome. Free, and unedited, unadulterated.
Let's talk about the job market real quick. Behind rise in unemployment, job market is really strong. This is a Wall Street Journal story. And there's two stories back to back. I'll read both of them here for you on what's going on with the job market. So, unemployment rate increased to 3.7% from 3.4% in May, but the numbers of jobs surge indicating a strong job market. The household survey, which determines the unemployment rate, showed a decline in employment, but when adjusted to payroll definition, household employment actually increased by 394,000. Wages remain firm with a slight deceleration in overall wages in May, but wages for non-management employees rose by 0.5% over the past 3 months. Both overall wages and non-management earnings continue to grow at a rate that showed no sign of deceleration, which may unsettle the Federal Reserve. Healthcare, government, and you know what that means, right? That means interest rates are about to increase. Healthcare, government, professional sectors added the most jobs, while the information sector experienced a decline, possibly due to a writer's strike. And then this leads to the next story. U.S. job openings rose in April, reversing 3-month decline. U.S. job openings rose in April, reversing 3-month job decline, indicating strong employer demand despite a gradual slowing economy. The Labor Department reported a seasonally adjusted 10.1 million jobs in April, up from 9.7 million jobs. Layoffs decreased to 1.6 million in April, further highlighting a solid labor market. While job openings have declined from the record high of 12 million in March of 2022, they still outnumber the 5.7 million actively seeking in April. Various sectors experienced changes in job openings, with increases seen in retail, warehouses, healthcare, and transportation, while declines were observed in factories, real estate firms, and state local governments. The number of workers quitting their jobs held steady, indicating confidence in finding new employment opportunities. Tom.
So there's a couple things going on here. And hey, Rob, can you look up this type, Fred initial claims, initial job claims, Fred, and you'll get this blue chart right here.
Fred, not the Fed.
Fred.
Interesting.
Fred.
That's a new one.
There you go. So what's going on here is two things that we need to, there we go, St. Louis, that's it. Let's take a look at this. Watch for the blue line. There's another chart in there. But what we've got here is initial job claims have suddenly spiked. I don't mean a little.
Tom, can I see that? Go ahead. Keep saying it.
And just look at the blue line on the far left.
Yeah.
And what happens to that blue line? And that came out yesterday. So the initial job claims come out. What is an initial job claim? That's someone after 6 weeks says, I've been unable to find work. I need unemployment assistance, and they get it from their state. So you go to the unemployment office. So those claims are way up. The other one is, Rob, let's just go to show the tweet that I had from Danielle. And what was very interesting going on here, take a look at this. There is the Labor Department made a birth death adjustment. Whoops. We got this wrong on birth death. They changed it. And look what they did to their own chart, Pat. Whack. Their chart takes this whack, and Danielle and others came out and said, this is Danielle DiMartino Booth, who's an expert on Fed statistics. If you look at the past 12 months, 37% of the jobs were made by a birth death adjustment. In other words, they weren't made. So when they say that job creation was up, 37% of those is a data correction, and it is a pure estimate from our government. What's not an estimate from our government is that jobless claims just spiked last week as people are looking for real checks. So if there's real jobs out there and the job growth is up, then why are so many people looking for checks? This is the conflict that's in our labor statistics. We've had people recently that were here on PBD Podcast who said, how is it that the government 14 months in a row kept beating the labor stats? Remember that, Pat? Mm-hmm. It's because they make an announcement, they go in the background, they quietly adjust it, and then next week they say, oh, we beat our estimate. So there's a lot of BS going on, and all I got to say is look at the number of people laid off, look at what's going in the housing market, look at the number of initial jobless claims. I don't care about the job creation stats. When I look around my community and I can see people that are in line for unemployment checks and I see what's going on, this is the government, specifically the Biden administration, is creating good news out of statistics. And there's a couple times that they've done some magic spreadsheet work. Look at that spike, Pat.
Jeez.
That was an adjustment that they made in birth deaths. The chart's going this way. No, sorry. It's up here. and you've got experts on this, like Danielle, coming out and say 37% of those jobs were made by a spreadsheet.
Thank you for that breakdown. No, genuinely, that's
awesome.
A little more of the value. Can I add a little tainment to this thing? This other article here, I think is very entertaining. Here, let me just read it real quick. It's basically it's an article from the Insider. It says, "No job, no problem. For some, they call it, here's a new term, fun employment. Summer after quitting sounds like a perfect job. Fun employment is a term for embracing joblessness as liberating and empowering, prioritizing personal pursuits and self-reflection. It's about enjoying life." Rather than rushing into a new job, the pandemic has shifted perspectives on work and life, leading to burnout and restlessness. Around 28% of laid-off workers plan to take a break before their next job, recognizing the opportunity of self-care and exploration. Those with savings and severance are taking advantage of fun employment summer. They pursue passions, personal growth, and even make career changes, realizing that traditional work may not bring them fulfillment. People want to have that work-life balance. People want to have that fun employment summer. You know, last year was hot girl summer.
Yeah.
Then before that, I think it was White Boy Summer.
White Boy
Shout out
Summer.
to Chet Hanks.
Yeah.
Now it's Fun Employment Summer. Who needs money? We can get money from the government, baby.
Exactly. And let's go back. And can you take us back to your man on the street interview with a young woman that came from New York with that government money to have a fun employment week?
There's a beginning and a middle to end of this fun employment. The beginning is you got a check from the government for $6,000. What are you going to do with that money? I'm going on spring break vacation. I said, they were only giving out $1,800. How'd you get $6,000 or so? She goes, I got dependents, baby. Oh, you got kids? I go, by the way, how much did you spend on this vacation? $6,000. How much money you have left in the account after this trip? I have no money left. Okay. Sounds like that fun employment's going to be coming to an end, and you're going to have what is called unemployment at that point. Then you're going to need to be collecting unemployment checks, and then you need to be back on the government situation again.
And she wasn't.
Fun employment leads to no money after a while.
She was looking for someone to take her to dinner, and you were a cute guy with a microphone.
And Vinny, exactly. That's what happens when these girls collect them fun employment checks. They want some dude out there to start funding their lifestyle. Gentlemen, be very careful of these leeches out here.
I need that clip in my email so I can forward it.
You know what? And this is
This
is a perfect transition into why vasectomies rose by 29% in the 3 months after the end of Roe. The Economist, this is a true story, by the way. The Economist comes out with the story talking about following the Supreme Court decision of Dobbs versus Jackson, Women's Health Organization ruling, which allowed states to ban abortion and demand the vasectomy surge in the summer of 2022. Dr. Doug Stein, a urologist, saw registrations for vasectomies almost triple the week after the ruling. Insurance claims data indicates 17% increase in procedures in the 6 month following the ruling with a 29% increase between July and September. While the number of vasectomies have been gradually increasing in recent years, the rate of Americans who have undergone the procedure is lower than it was 20 years ago. Men who were motivated by Dobbs' ruling cited various reasons for choosing vasectomy, including concerns about limited access to abortion as a backup contraception method, fears that vasectomy could be outlawed next, and a sense of solidarity with women. Vasectomy is seen as a sacrifice that eases the burden of contraception responsibility from women and is often associated with gender equality. What a noble cause. So when are you guys getting yours done?
Yeah.
I don't have any. Adam, you're trying to have a kid. I'm trying to have one, so I'm going to wait.
I'm impregnating everybody out there.
Yeah, my brother has 4. My brother.
Any thoughts on this crazy statistic?
Of course.
What do you want to say?
I'll add to this. Well, this is going to be a very controversial take. Okay, so brace for impact. Only men can have vasectomies. That's
what?
Yeah, only men.
Oh, what?
Women cannot have
you're
vasectomies.
Homophobic, transphobic.
Hey, it is what it is.
You're a phobic.
Just like only women can have babies. I said it. I don't know.
What? No.
I'm taking that stance right there.
Thanks for banning us.
You know, I actually had a conversation. We had a whole debate about this. Rollo Tomasi, shout out to him. He made a whole tweet storm out there, basically saying the quickest path to being a high-value man was to do the following 7 things. And number 3, I believe, was get a vasectomy. And it was very controversial. People were like, what are you talking about? Why would a man get a vasectomy? And basically, he says, there was a whole checklist of things. And essentially, he highlighted the quickest path is not rushing to have kids, not rushing to have a family, focusing on yourself, focusing on not having kids, focus on your money, focusing on all that, which I can appreciate because I've sort of followed that path. And now that I've made my money, have my network, things are good, life's good, I'm fully prepared, fully ready to basically utilize my non-vasectomy to the ladies out there taking applications. And I think that the next situation is, I would like to have a family. And I fully agree with kind of what he's saying. And I wouldn't take what he was saying too literally. I don't think people are rushing to genuinely get vasectomies, but not having kids and not starting a family, at least in your 20s and even in your early 30s, I think is important. And then the next phase, I think it is very important to be a family man.
Well, as you know, Pat, because he told us, you're leaving this weekend. So is there any possibility you want to tell everybody where you're going and maybe you might pull the trigger, you might come back a different...
I'm going back to Romania to see Tate. We're going to go have a great time. We did the filming. Now I'm invited back, and there's a lot of great opportunity, great success. We'll see. Yeah, but Tom, you waited until you're...
Too quiet. Play this clip with Dr. Phil. Watch this video.
I love it. I love this clip.
Gender boys who might not have their own money
Pathetic
to go
questions.
buy tampons. If they're provided free in the
Boys
bathroom, it's
don't have
a
money to get
huge
tampons.
plus.
Men do not menstruate. Only women menstruate. Now, you can call yourself
Cis men
whatever you
don't
want.
menstruate, but trans men do menstruate.
No,
Same
they
as
don't.
non-binary people.
Only women.
Menstruating is not exclusive
Yes,
to
it
cis
is.
women. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So explain to me as to why my body
if you
menstruated at
if
some
your
point
chromosomes
then.
are XX and you're young, you menstruate. If you're XY, you don't.
Correct, but what about trans men and non-binary?
They're
We're
not
excluding
men.
a whole group of
They're
people
women
that
dressed
menstruate.
as men. You are not a man.
Camo.
You pretend to be a man, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Live your life and tell me what a man is.
Well, what's a man to you? You define a man for me.
You have chromosomes that are X and Y. That's what a man is.
So why are we just looking at the science of this as an
The
example when we've learned sex and gender identity are they're completely different things.
People that's in trouble
They
with
are
science.
completely
Why are we looking at the science?
Words.
And sex is what you're born with, the sexual reproductive organs you
She's-
have.
or he or
Gender
she,
is
what
what
is
you
that?
identify with. They're completely
Well, I don't
different
accept that
things.
distinction. You have to argue for it. You're just giving a conclusion. You're just making it up. People who hate the truth.
I love that he's
I love how he's leaning back too. He's so comfortable.
Hateful. If you want to identify in any way you can, you're free to do so. But that does not mean that the rest of us have to join that illusion. You disagree. I disagree with you, and so you call it hate. But there's no hate in my heart at all. So that's
You are being hateful when you tell somebody that identifies as a man that they're not a man.
God, these
That
people,
is
That's a
hateful.
fact.
Pat, aren't you being honest?
But I tell you, I love that he's wearing a pink shirt.
I love it. And he's like
got
this.
a
And he's
pink
like, he's
tie.
Listen, but I'm a fifth grade teacher.
Pat, he's playing with his chest. He's like, you know what? You don't got a vagina.
You know what's amazing?
You're a guy. I'm a fifth grade teacher. Come on. I love him, bro.
Two
He's like
things.
my new hero.
Number one, you know at the end that he was going to be called hate and right-wing extremist.
100%.
He's like, I'm a fifth grade teacher here, buddy. Why is his voice so important? Because this guy deals with 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds who think they're unicorns and princesses and Peter Pan and astronauts, and they're living in Fantasyland, and they are not. So he knows how to identify people who are just living in Neverland and being like, I know, Scotty, that you think you're an astronaut and you're wearing that little, or you think you're a T-Rex. Yeah. You're just a boy. So I'm going to allow you to think you are. You're just a boy. Same thing as the trannies out there. You're just a man dressing up in skirts.
And at the end of the day, do you? I hope you get the right, because the gender dysphoria, it's mental, whatever they need to do. And that's what, and that's a great point that he made. I disagree. Doesn't mean I hate. And when we say, listen, like, leave the kids, let the kids make up their own decision, leave them alone. You're transphobic. Label is put on you and you hate them. And it's like, bro, do your thing.
The definition of transphobic is the hatred of trans people. Nobody hates trans people.
No.
Saying, hey, I don't think you're an actual woman. I think you still got your dick.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have a period. I don't hate you. I'm just kind of telling you the truth.
Facts don't give a shit about your feelings.
Exactly.
They don't. They really don't.
Bill Maher, what was it, 4 or 5 months ago, did a beautiful diatribe, and he just kind of laid it out. And at the very end of it, he said, me, personally, when I was young, I wanted to be a pirate, and I'm so glad my parents didn't send me out for eye removal and peg leg surgery.
That's fantastic.
Brilliant. That was how he summed it up.
Exactly.
He said, it's a phase, and everything is a phase in kids.
And I think, in all seriousness,
he made a great point.
I fully agree. I think in all seriousness, the number one thing is you guys want to dress up and do your little thing, stay away from the kids.
You say that
stay
men
away
can
from the
menstruate.
freaking kids. Yeah. Oh, here's with Prager? Amazing. Even better.
Is that the clip or no?
No. It's the clip where he was where he goes through the
PBD,
thing.
you want to give a hot take on this?
No, I don't have a hot take. It's common sense, man. It's just, you can keep trying to push this down people's throat, but guess what? You're starting to look like clowns is what you're starting to look like. Mm-hmm. Absolute clowns. And who looks even bigger of a clown? You know who's the guy that works at, what is the guy's name who works at MSNBC? He does the elections. Man, I wish I
Steve
could tell.
Kornacki.
Man, no, give me the names.
Guy?
No, give me the names. He's like, what is it with these guys? Do you know studies show that, the whole thing about there's only 2 different sexes? That's actually not true. Do you know recent studies have shown, I'm listening to this guy, I'm like, do you realize, like, you're a pretty credible guy to say, I'll find it and I'll give it to you guys.
Chuck Todd?
Chuck Todd
said something in the interview where
Steve Kornacki does all
well,
the
he did,
election
but
stuff.
Chuck Todd did say something along the lines.
No, it's Chuck Todd. It's Chuck Todd that said
That's
it.
Meet the Press. Chuck Todd.
Chuck Todd
University
said
of
that.
Miami grad. What?
Yeah,
Chuck, come on.
Did you see what he said though about this?
Who was he interviewing, Pat? Who was the interview?
Oh my God,
Chuck Todd's interview,
Todd.
and he goes, "It's not just about like it's like things have changed and there's different." And the guy was like, "No, I don't know." Yeah, it was Vivek. This was it, Pat, right?
Yeah, it's with Vivek. But don't do the whole 1 minute and 51 seconds. See if you can find a shorter version of it. Are you confident? Okay, here we go. I found it. I'm going to text it to you.
I lost all respect for him.
You got to hear this. This is like, how can you even say something like that and still have credibility? I texted it to you.
Adam, you're going to lose respect. You're going to lose respect.
Rob, let me know if you got it. It's mind-boggling.
Did you lose respect for him? Be honest.
I don't know if I had it in the first place to lose it. Like, there needs to be some respect to lose it.
Yeah.
When you continuously say stuff that makes zero sense, you just lose credibility. That's all, as simple as that. Watch this.
I can't believe
this is what Vivek, and Vivek is sitting there saying like,
no, you're
and
wrong.
you work for this company? How did you get a job for this company? Watch this. Go ahead.
Are you confident that you know that gender is as binary as you're describing it? Are you confident that it isn't a spectrum?
I am.
Do you know this as a scientist?
Well, there's two X chromosomes. If you're a woman, an X and a Y, that means you're a man.
There's a lot of
There's a
scientific
biological basis
research
for
out
this.
there. There's a lot of scientific research out there that says gender is a spectrum.
Chuck, I respectfully disagree. Gender dysphoria for most of our history, all the way through the DSM-5, has been characterized as a mental health disorder, and I don't think it's compassionate to affirm that. I think that's cruelty. When a kid is crying out for help, what they're asking for is, you got to ask the question of what else is going wrong at home? What else is going wrong at school? Let's be compassionate and get to the heart of that, rather than playing this game as though we're actually changing our medical understanding for the last 100 years.
I go back to this.
The fact that a Chuck Todd says that, there's people that watch this who are regular people and say, well, I'm never going to have a show on TV, especially at a company like that. That guy probably knows what he's talking about. Guess what? There's more than two genders. No. Yeah. Where is the credibility for something like that?
What would make him say that? But real talk though, what makes him say that? He's reading off his notes and his chart. Why would you even say that?
It's a clown show.
Because to keep his job, he's a wind-up toy soldier for the left.
Look, just to kind of so all of this kind of ties all together with a company we are all deeply concerned about, and I think we need to. The way they're going right now, their funeral's coming soon.
Bud Light.
But Bud Light, let's talk about Bud Light here. Bud Light experienced another week of sales decline, dropping 24% from a year ago. This is a Fox Business story. Bud Light experienced another week of decline last week of May with a 23.9% decrease in sales on a dollar basis compared to the same period last year. And sales have fallen another 24.5% the past 4 weeks, according to Nielsen IQ data. The sales decline can be attributed to the backlash faced by Bud Light and parent company Anheuser-Busch since creating custom cans for its transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney in early April. However, the week ending May 27 marked a smaller decrease compared to the previous week. Factors contributing to the smaller decline include effective communication by Anheuser-Busch distributors, continued merchandise placement by retailers, and strong Memorial Day sales driven by discounts and rebates, and challenging comparisons to 2022 sales. Tom.
This is really funny. I don't need to talk about this anymore. I mean, this is Budweiser walking with a permanent limp the way they've shot themselves in the foot. Well, but what is happening on the back end? For beer drinkers that want good beer, Pat, check this out. Well, once a year, you have the Great American Beer Festival, and that's in Denver, Colorado. It's known as the Oscars of Brewing, and it's run by, independent minds, and Sam Adams has always been a great supporter of it. As a matter of fact, back in 2009, I finished third place, American Pale Ale competition.
Shout out to you,
You're
Tom,
joking?
the BizDoc.
I'm not joking. BizDoc is a craft brewer on the side when he has space and time, which is hard with the BizDoc babe and two girls in school. But what is happening right now is the craft brewers used to make rich, tasty beers. You go into a bar or something like and it's the Oregon honey beer. It's got a rich, different taste. What they've been making over the course of the last 2 years is more fast drinkable and mass drinkable. They've been aiming at Budweiser, ironically, and there are these 5 breweries that have come out of nowhere, and they're being covered on social media by their followers. There's things going on. So what is happening is the American entrepreneur And craft brewers are fighting back, and you've got people like the Odell Brewing Company in Colorado, Creature Comforts in Athens, Georgia, Exhibit A Brewing Company, which I think is hysterical, in Framingham, Massachusetts, Dovetail Brewery. They are all brewing better than Budweiser's. It's mainstream American Pilsners aim to be better than Budweiser's, and they're taking off because they've gotten lift over the past month because people are saying, why drink Budweiser? Why don't you drink the Dovetail Brewery Budweiser copy? But it's actually better than Budweiser. And so American beer drinkers are supporting small entrepreneurs, craft brewers that are brewing stuff up. So it's not just the boycott. The consumer, the beer drinker, didn't stop being a beer drinker for the summer. They're looking for alternatives, and they're finding it, and they're finding it coming from American entrepreneurs coming out of the Great American Beer Festival. And I think this is a fantastic unintended consequence coming at Budweiser.
And Tom, who just ranked up to number one as the most popular beer in the United States?
In terms of mass-produced factory beers,
Modelo, let's go, baby.
That is the
They won
most
number one.
disgusting beer in the
It's
world.
so
When
nasty.
Modelo is number one, there's problems. You guys like Modelo?
No, I only
can't
could drink it with like a michelada or
I
something.
only
like
drink
that.
it when I'm pissed off.
Yeah, but Pat, do you guys see what Dylan Mulvaney said about this whole thing? He said more companies should work with more diverse groups of trans people after this whole debacle with Bud Light. And he said, and I quote, "For a long time, I felt so lucky that these opportunities were coming my way that I thought it was by accident. But now I realize how much power I actually have." He goes, "If a brand wants to work with me so bad, then they should work with other trans people too. It's not enough just to hire me, this white, skinny trans girl. I want all the dolls to be getting brand new, like all these brand deals." Go ahead. So if you're listening, you're a company, start hiring a bunch of these guys and see what happens to your company. It better not be a masculine freaking Bud Light.
Numbers
don't lie.
Don't favor
They
them.
don't lie.
Numbers don't favor them.
No, it doesn't. And it's in beer, it's not just a boycott. We are now shifting away from giant woke factory beer companies, and independent entrepreneurs and little islands in this country are winning, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so to wrap it up here, guys, before we finish up the podcast, there's a story that came up about Mel Gibson. I kind of want to talk about this. The story was about, I even retweeted it, is a story about the child trafficking documentary that he's doing, a 4-part documentary. It was written by Newsweek saying that he's doing this. So is this the Newsweek one? Yeah. Is Mel Gibson making, okay. Reports have emerged claiming that Mel Gibson is working on a 4-part docuseries uncovering the global child sex trafficking market involving countries like Ukraine. Social media influencers Matt Wallace tweeted, "It's time to expose the truth." While the founder of the operation, Undergrounded Railroad, Tim Ballard, hinted at Gibson's involvement in the docuseries, Gibson's representative denied the rumors, stating they are inaccurate. However, high-profile political influencers have expressed support with the former Arizona governor nominee Kerry Lake, stating Mel Gibson's heart and soul are in the right place. Gibson's controversial past, including racist, anti-Semitic, and sexist comments, has fueled speculation. However, fact checkers have revealed that certain quotes attributed to Gibson are false and misleading. So we don't know what's going to happen, whether he's going to produce it or not. If he does, he would be the right guy to do it. And this Tim Ballard guy has been involved in this for he had some trouble, I think, also a couple of years ago. But it would be I'm reading this book by Tommy Mottola yesterday about the story of Tommy. I couldn't put the book down. And, you know, there's a part where he was trying to make a movie. And this movie was supposed to be him and Robert De Niro and some big name guys that were going to do this, okay? And last minute, they're sitting there saying it's a story about going up against pedophilia and what was really taking place. And last minute, it never got funded for the movie to be made. So movies like this, documentaries like this, shows like this, there's a lot of people that don't want to do it because where are you going to platform it? Where are you going to put it up? But if there's a guy that could do it and pull it off, it's definitely Mel Gibson.
I put it on Twitter. I put it on Twitter.
Yeah,
that's why I would
see what's
going
to happen.
Yep.
And I think Musk would be okay with that. Anyways, gang, we covered a bunch of different stories today. Once again, for those of you guys that are wanting the Tate interview, text the word 310-340-1132. Text the word Tate to 310-340-1132. Once again, 310-340-1132. There will be no podcast next week. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that showed up to the live event that we did last week, the Fresh and Fit podcast. We sold out. Shout out to the Valuetainment crew out there that came. That was amazing. Thank you for the opportunity, PBD. I hope we didn't let you down. It was awesome. Shout out to the team. And thank you again for the Tate trip. It was awesome.
Amazing experience.
Vinny, you were low-key the MVP of that trip. You were hilarious.
We got a lot more
We had an awesome trip.
Interviews like that coming up here very soon.
Yeah, and we're both out next week. You're going to be with your family. I'm going to be back in Romania. We'll see.
I'm just out. I'm going to be out next week. But okay, sounds good. Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.